Hello, everybody. Good evening and good day to you all, wherever you are in the world, and welcome back to the Ask Abhijit show. This is episode 355. I hope you're all doing great. So, what shall we discuss today? We shall discuss whatever you want. I will not start with a recap of what's been happening in the Third Gulf War. That's I can take that in case you ask questions about that, but we'll take any questions that you want, including the UFO files, which have apparently dropped. So before we get into the questions, let's see who all is there on the live chat with us today. Hot Flame Edits, Mochi XO Gaming, Rano Nahapana, Hail Vasudev indeed. Mary Kane, good morning, ma'am. Good to see you. SHSJ09, UFO Files, yes. Aryan Abdul Purkar, okay. We friend, Rekha Humble, Jai Shri Ram, ma'am. Geopolitical Dubey, good to see you as always. From Indore, yes. Struggler 856, UFOs, yes. Hot Flame Edits, Chirag Srinath, Om Naik Namaskar from Sambalpur. Good to have you. Om Zero Popali, Imperial Bharat, Abhyuday Singh, Pyari Priya 82, hello. Nirvana Shanks, good to see you, sir. Good to see you. Ave. Who else? Aditya Yadav, Abhishek Srivastav, okay. Abhyuday Singh once again. Animish Bharatiya, Ram Ji. Abhyuday Singh once again. Shri Hari Arjun, Namaste. Ayush Singh, good to see you. Good to see you back. Akhand Ladha, Alak Lada, good evening to you. Manhattan I6W, good to see you too as well. Shalendra Chaudhary, Shri Hari Arjun, Tanmay Deshpande, A.J. Raul, salut. Harshai 009, Kemcho indeed. Imperial Bharat, Sutikshna 123, hola. TSP 57, hello. Anish 1784, Jai Shri Krishna, and Anish is here from Calgary. Good morning to you, sir. Who else do we have? Nanesh, hello. Aditya Yadav, Anup from Pune, good to have you, Anup. No audio, really? Someone saying no audio. Can you hear me? Am I audible? Someone, I don't know. It looks like everything's fine. Okay, looks like the audio is fine. Arnav Chaurasia, good to see you. Chat DSP, Namaste Ji. Aman Kumar Dhankar. Pyari Priya once again. Divyansh Khera. Shreyansh Rathor. Reddy, always ready. Good to see you, sir. Soldier Boy, Dheeraj Kamath. Animish Bharatiya, Priyanka Javalia, good evening, ma'am. Arnav Chaurasia. Thank you, sir. AI agents every day from Canada. Good morning, sir. Good morning, AI agents from every day. Rishabh Chaudhary, Shubham Kumar. Good evening. Manisha Cardoso, namaste, ma'am. Good to see you again. Third party. Ankita Kachap. Good evening, ma'am. Dheeraj Kamath. Good morning to you. Dheeraj Kamath is in the US. Sugant BVKS. Naman Parikh. And everyone else. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, for being on this live stream. Now let's get going with some questions. Hot Flame says UFO files dropped today. Holy moly, yeah, holy moly. Mochi Gaming says how to be a good speaker and articulate your thoughts well, just like you. How to be a good speaker? Well, you need to have, first of all, something to say. I am not a very talkative person in real life. Okay, so I think I reserve all of my speaking for the live streams. I'm not a talkative person. I'm not going around talking to everyone and all that. I don't do that. So, but you can be a talkative person and be a good speaker too. I suppose it's about having something to say, having some understanding of what you want to speak about, and you need to have thought long and hard and deep about certain things, and you need to have deep knowledge and broad knowledge, and then of course you need to, I don't know, learn how to express yourself well. I suppose that comes through practice. Okay, that comes through practice. So you've got to, it's a skill. Look, how to be a speaker, how to be a good speaker, how to articulate what you're thinking well. It's just a skill. It's a skill like cricket, like bowling, like batting. It's a skill like any sport. So it's a skill like playing the guitar. It's a skill like anything else. So it's something you have to practice. Okay, You practice, the more you practice, the better you get at it. It's as simple as that. Mary Kane, good morning, ma'am. Good morning. Good to have you all, as always. Thank you so much. SHSJ says UFO files. Yes, we shall discuss the UFO files. Uh, who else? V Friend says, I remember you mentioning that 2020s will be the decade of the virus. Are we heading in that path with new virus making buzz, hantavirus? And ironically, Moderna has been working on its vaccine. Well, you seem to have a very good and long memory, because I think I said that in 2021 in a podcast with Ranveer Labadia. I had said that it's possible that the 2020s could be the decade of the virus. And I was hoping with all my heart that I'll be completely wrong about that. Thus far, it's been just one pandemic, the COVID thing, right? Which obviously is no longer a pandemic anymore, right? But now there is this new scare of the hantavirus on a cruise ship somewhere, right? And the hantavirus is very different from the COVID virus. It has a much higher mortality rate, but it's not very transmissive. It's the rate of transmission from human to human is extremely low, unless it has mutated on the trip. So I hope this doesn't turn out to be a new problem for humanity. I just hope so. And Moderna, well, the less we say about Moderna, the better, isn't it? Yes. Nirvana Shank says, finally finished the right stuff yesterday. Took me over a month because I started painfully slow. But apparently I did, in fact, have the right stuff to finish it. I'm glad you finished the book. It's a really nice book, really good book. The author has written it as if he was there wherever, whatever was happening. He has like reproduced conversations, reproduced all kinds of things, but it's very entertaining. Overall, it's factual. Obviously, he has invented some of the stuff, some of the conversations. He has, I don't know what it's called. Is it called gonzo journalism or whatever? But he has put himself in the midst of the events as if he was actually there. So some of the things are kind of a little bit embellished and so on, but overall, it's very factual, and it's a fantastic book. It brings you, back in those days, takes you back to the days when the space race was going on, and how the Americans succeeded the way they did. Pyari Priya is a new member. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, and welcome to the channel's membership, ma'am. Okay, let's take some. Let's get going with the super chats. Abhishek Shrivastava says BJP won Bengal. How did the world react, and how did Trump react? BJP won Bengal. So first of all, congratulations to the people of Bengal. The long nightmare is finally over. I mean, you could have done this earlier. You could have done this 5 years ago or whatever. But whatever. You are the boss. The people of Bengal decide what happens in Bengal. And now you have decided it's time for a change. So I would like to congratulate you all. The nightmare is finally over, and hopefully this is good for national security and for the integrity and sanctity of the international borders that we have in West Bengal and so on. So overall, it's a positive development, and I am pleased with it. Now, how did the world react? I haven't really bothered to see how the world reacted. It's none of the world's business. I believe Trump has extended some form of congratulations to Prime Minister Modi about this or whatever. Okay, it doesn't really concern Trump, but okay, right? Okay. Okay, what else? Okay. So Struggler says, did you see the UFO/UAP videos that Pentagon has released? So the UFO or UAP disclosure has happened. At least some information has been released into the public, information that was not made available to the public thus far. And you can see. So have I seen this? I have not gone to the website and gone through the videos. I've glanced at the website, right? I haven't really dug deep into it. I have seen some of the videos that are now circulating on social media, like Twitter, X, and so on. And to be very honest, I've been a little disappointed. Yeah. I mean, all this hype, they had built up all this hype, right, about the UFO or UAP disclosure. So I was hoping to finally discover the existence of aliens. We come in peace, live long and prosper, We come to serve man, where that is the name of a cookbook, Twilight Zone 1962, in case you're aware, right? I was hoping that we would learn something about the evolution of humankind, of mankind, the cycle of going from dust to desert, the metamorphosis from being the ruler of a planet to being an ingredient in someone's soup. Overall, I was hoping that we would discover something new from this so-called disclosure of UFOs and UAPs and whatnot, right? I was hoping we would discover something, but we have discovered nothing. Nothing of any, nothing groundbreaking, nothing earth-shaking has come out of this. Grainy videos and photographic artifacts and transcripts of Apollo astronauts saying that something looks slightly strange somewhere. There's no evidence. There's no hard, unmistakable, undeniable, unambiguous evidence of alien visitation or any such thing. It's all hazy. It's all half. I mean, it can be interpreted in 78 different ways. Whatever they've put out, there's no hard evidence of anything whatsoever. It's just a waste of everyone's time. They're trying to obfuscate. They're trying to hide something. They're not trying to hide the existence of aliens. They're trying to make the world move on from something that's not gone very well, perhaps the Iran war. The war the Americans launched with the help of Israel, or maybe they were dragged into it by Israel, on Iran, Third Gulf War. The Americans have been defeated in that. And maybe they're trying to make the world move on from that. It's an inconvenient fact that we were defeated by the Iranians. So let's now talk about UFOs and UAPs. Let's have hype over that. So the Iran war was all about making the world forget about the Epstein files. And now the UFOs, I think, and UAPs, I think, are all about making the world move on from the debacle of the war they launched on Iran. That's what I think it is. There's nothing of note in these videos. They're all black and white, grainy videos. Some are colored. All the footage that's captured by fighter aircraft and helicopters and so on, it's deliberately downgraded and rendered to black and white, monochrome, and then published. I promise you they have color footage and high resolution footage of everything, but they will downgrade it, render it into monochrome, and then release it to the public so that you can't really make out what's going on. I think this is just a waste of everyone's time, actually. I would have loved to see the evidence, if it existed, of contact between us and some neighbors from somewhere. But I haven't seen any of that. So they're just wasting everyone's time. They want you to move on from the Iran debacle. They have been defeated by the Iranians. Unfortunately, that's what I think is going on. I didn't see anything interesting in the UFO UAP disclosure. If something did actually get disclosed that was genuinely interesting, it would have been all over social media by now. So yeah, that's about it. Chirag Srinath says, have you noticed the recent news which came out a few days ago that India has put across a statement to pull out of the $30 billion deal for 114 French Rafale jets? How do you see this? Okay, so I've kind of heard about this. India has not actually pulled out of anything, but maybe India is threatening to pull out of the deal. So look, it's a gigantic, ginormous deal. $30 billion roughly is no joke. 114 jets. What happens if you divide 114 or 120 by 30? It's about $4 billion a piece. Of course, there's other systems that come integrated into the package, but overall, just the basic math is roughly close to $4 billion. Is it 4? No, it's not. Yeah, I got the math wrong. I did it the other way around. What's okay? 0.25. It's about $250 million a piece, right? It's about $250 million a piece. Okay. Yeah, I did the math the other way around. I should have inverted that. So it's about $250 million a jet, which is ridiculous. Unless it comes with a lot of weapons and whatnot, the whole integrated package, in which case it can perhaps make sense. Okay. But if you're paying so much per jet, you've got to get access to the source code You're purchasing the goddamn jets, so you should be able to do whatever you want with them. You should be able to integrate your own weapons with the jets and do whatever you want. The French say, no, monsieur, no, not at all, not at all. It's not allowed. Yes, it's not allowed. You want to integrate something, you must take our permission. We, our technicians, will integrate for you on a case by case basis. That's what they're saying. And that's a problem. That makes no sense. If I'm paying $250 billion a jet, I want complete control of what I'm purchasing. Otherwise, you can go to hell. So the French are being difficult. So India obviously will say this is not going to work out. Yeah, so India probably has said we are considering walking out of this stupid deal. Now let's see what news is out there about this. So India Rafale deal cancelled? Question mark? Cancelled? Not cancelled. So here's what the Google AI has to say. As of April 2026, India has not formally cancelled the new deal for 114 Rafale jets. It's $43 billion. Okay, what is $43 billion for 114 Rafale jets? Good God, that's ridiculous. So India has threatened to walk away from this deal if France refuses to share critical software source code and meet indigenous manufacturing requirements. So no source code, no deal stand. India demands access to the intellectual core data ICD to enable integration of Indian indigenous weapons like the Astra missile series and full operational sovereignty. And France says it is très difficile to do this. It is critical software, and there are security and technological risk factors over here. That's what the French are saying. So I would say, if the French insist that they will not give full operational sovereignty to India over the jets, then we should simply walk out of it. Okay? And purchase 114 Sukhoi 57s. Maybe the Sukhois aren't the best aircraft in the world, but we will have full operational sovereignty over those aircraft. We'll be able to manufacture all of them in-house in India, and we will get full access to the source code, software, everything. So we will have full operational sovereignty over the aircraft. Makes way more sense. Maybe the Rafale is better than the Sukhoi. I don't care. Sovereignty matters. Yeah. So looks like there is some kind of negotiating impasse between the two nations. The French are being obstinate. Yeah. And India says, so I would highly recommend to the government of India, if the French don't give India full operational sovereignty or the aircraft, walk out of the deal and go make a deal with the Russians. That's how I see it. Okay. Om Popali says, Nadir Shah legitimate impact on well-being of Iran. Okay, there's a follow-up question. Nadir Shah versus Reza Shah, who was better for Iran? Okay. So was Nadir Shah a legitimate ruler of Iran? What was his impact on the well-being of Iran? So first of all, context, Nadir Shah was a Turk. He was not Persian. He was a Turk who ruled over Iran. I forget the name of the dynasty. Well, definitely not the Qajar dynasty, a different dynasty. It was a reasonably short-lived dynasty. And Nadir Shah sought to emulate, Timur the barbarian, and kill as many people as he could, millions possibly. So that's what Nadir Shah sought to do. And it's the only time in history that a ruler of Persia decided to invade India. Never happened before, never happened since. India and Persia never were at war, ever, right, before this. And some of you will say, no, but there were border conflicts and all. Border conflicts happens between everybody. There was no full-scale invasion by either civilization on the other, right? Never happened. Border skirmishes and all, that happens all the time with anybody. Borders change. But I'm talking about a full-scale military campaign, full-scale invasion. Never happened. Nadir Shah did that. So that's the context for Indians about Nadir Shah. Barbarian, okay? And he did terrible, terrible things in India, in Delhi. Legitimate, well, he ruled Iran. He had sovereignty over Iran. That makes you legitimate, He was the legitimate ruler of Iran. That nobody can deny. Impact on the well-being of Iran. Well, he stole a lot of money from India, a lot of gold, a lot of treasure, and he plundered all the plunder he brought to Persia, and I suppose it would have been good for the well-being of Persia, for a while at least, right? For a couple of years, he did not levy taxes on the people. That's how much wealth he plundered from India. So overall, it was good for Iran. But overall, it was terrible for India-Persia relations because this sort of barbarity, brutality had never happened before. Nadir Shah versus Reza Shah, who was better for Iran? Well, from an Iranian perspective, I would say Nadir Shah was better. Reza Shah Pahlavi, Mohammed Reza Pahlavi. So there are two Pahlavis, right? There's Reza Shah, and then there is his son Mohammed Reza. So Reza Shah, he came to power as an Anglo-American puppet, and he essentially handed over Iran's oil wealth to the Anglo-Americans. So that obviously was an extractive kind of arrangement, which is terrible for Iran. So overall, I would say Nadir Shah was better than Reza Shah for Iran. Rashikuddin says, idea, start a live debate panel on screen with fans. Well, I've done that in the past, not debates, but I've had people like you viewers, come in and ask me questions face to face. Debates, I don't do debates. That's for the Indian news channels to do debates where people shout at each other. I don't do debates. I'm happy to take questions and have conversations briefly. But the question, see, I'll be happy to do it once in a while. I've done that in the past. But how much value does it give to the viewers is my main question. If you get to speak with me one-on-one, well, it's great for you, it's great for me. But how good, how informative, how educational, how whatever it is, how much of value does the audience get is the main question. Why do I do this? Why do I do this Ask Abhijit thing? I am trying to give some form of value to the audience. Maybe you learn something from me, perhaps. Whatever little I know, I'm trying to share. So I will certainly do this in the future. Once in a while, it won't be a regular feature, but I'll do it. It's not a bad idea. I've done that in the past. But there's a reason why I don't do it all the time, because overall, it's not the best value add for the audience. I've even done a poll in the past. I did a few of those. I think before I reached episode 100, I did a few of those, consecutively. And then I did a poll for the audience. So how much value do you get out of this? And the answer was that the audience was not getting a lot of value out of it. That's why I kind of toned it down, but I will do it once in a while in the future. Won't be a debate. Won't be like 5 people and all talking or whatever, but maybe we can find some constructive and useful format where maybe 2-3 people can be on the screen and we can have some kind of conversation. So overall, interesting idea. I've thought about this in the past, and maybe it's time for me to think about it again and make it like maybe tweak the format a little bit. So thank you, sir. Sachdev Satyajit says, your opinion on the dark forest hypothesis. Shouldn't we have seen at least some techno-signatures if there was a spacefaring civilization in our galaxy? Dark forest hypothesis. What is this? Yes, dark forest. So it's about whether aliens exist or not, and if aliens exist and multiple civilizations exist in the galaxy or wherever, what is the best approach for each species or civilization that will ensure its long-term survival? That's the dark forest question or hypothesis. So think about it like this, okay? You live in a thick, dark forest. Dark because the trees are so high and they blot out the sunlight. So on the ground, it's mostly shadows. It's kind of dark. And you live in this forest, and the forest is full of dangerous, deadly, scary predators. There's lions, there's tigers, there's anacondas, there's crocodiles, there is vampire goblin monkeys or whatever. You don't even know what's out there, but it's all scary. And each predator is out to eat the other, eat the weak. So what's your best strategy for survival if you are living in a dark forest like this? Your best strategy for survival is to keep as low a profile as you can. Stay hidden. Don't draw attention to yourself. Don't say, hey, hello, I'm here. No. You keep quiet. keep your profile low. You keep your head down. You do your thing. You go eat. You go reproduce. Do whatever. Keep a low profile. Don't draw attention to yourself. That's what you would do if you wanted to survive in this environment, in a dark forest. Now, what if the universe is a dark forest? Let's say, hypothetically, there's 100. Hypothetically, for the sake of argument, let us say that there are 100 reasonably advanced civilizations in our galaxy, the Milky Way, okay, in various star systems in the Milky Way. Now, let's say we are obviously one of those, and maybe there's 100 total, so 99 more, let's say. Now, we don't know how advanced or not these other intelligent civilizations are. It's possible some of them are more advanced than us. And if our characteristics as a species are any example, or any if we take this as an example, who we are and what kind of species we are, then maybe to advance to that level of advancement or intelligence, you have to be a violent species, perhaps, because we humans are the most violent species that we can think of in the history of our planet. Human beings are a super violent species, the most violent species ever. I mean, we are frail. We are, compared to lions and tigers and dinosaurs, we are thin, weak, frail, and yet we can destroy them all. That's how dangerous and deadly we are. So maybe to advance to this level of intelligence, maybe you have to be a super violent, super dangerous species. So maybe all these species, all these civilizations are super dangerous, super violent, and they're all suspicious of what's out there. And if they detect some other species existing somewhere else, they will think maybe they want to kill us, so let's kill them first. So what's the best, strategy for survival in that sort of situation where you don't know what the intentions of the others are, and you have to assume that they all have hostile intentions? You can't say, oh, Satyamev Jayate, oh, Ahimsa and all that, Satyagraha. No. You will no longer exist. You have to assume everybody wants to kill you. So what's the best, strategy for survival? Stay hidden. Don't draw attention to yourself. That's what humanity has to do if it wants to survive. But we are out there sending signals to the entire galaxy in the whole universe. So that's the deal. And maybe there's a small time window in which any species that suddenly discovers quantum mechanics, etc., and how to use the electromagnetic spectrum, maybe there's a small window of maybe 50 to 100 years in which these techno-signatures go out, and then the species wisens up and stops sending out signals. Right? So maybe there's a window of maybe 100, 150 years in which this happens. Maybe we are at the end, we are nearing the end of that window for as a species ourselves, right? So that's the dark forest hypothesis. So shouldn't we have seen at least some techno-signatures if there was a spacefaring civilization in our galaxy? Not necessarily. See, we started sending out, electromagnetic signals, which is radio waves and so on and so forth, about, let's say, 1900. It's been 126 years. So these signatures have traveled only 126 light years. What's the radius, or what's the diameter of the Milky Way? I think that's 100,000 light years. It's going to take 100,000 years for these signals to reach the other end of the galaxy. And considering the possibility that there's only a handful of intelligent civilizations out there, maybe it's not that easy for these signals to be detected, if they even exist. So I don't think we should have seen techno-signatures thus far. I mean, we have been looking for just a small number of decades. There's no guarantee that you will find techno-signatures in that amount of time. But we are on the lookout for, signs and symptoms of the existence of other civilizations. We're looking for Dyson spheres. We're looking for stars that wink out of existence. We have other natural mechanisms for that. Yeah. Once neutron degeneracy collapses, so there are ways and means of this happening naturally. But overall, there's no it's not necessary that we should have seen techno-signatures thus far. We tend to overestimate or overstate how important we are. We've been a technological species in the sense of present day technology for just 50, 60, 70 years, maybe 100 years. That's a very, very tiny amount of time for us to detect anything. We need to be around for maybe 100,000 years to be able to potentially say that by now we should have discovered something, right? Before 1900, were we looking for signals? No. We thought the Milky Way was the universe. I think we did not even know about the Milky Way until around 1900s or something. So we had no idea of things until recently. Okay. Animish Bharatiya says, as a father of a 10-year-old daughter, what are do's and don'ts of exposing her to AI? How can I be a protective parent? That's an interesting question. Okay, you've got a 10-year-old kid, and AI is becoming more and more, well, ubiquitous. It's everywhere, right? AI. See the major dangers of AI. What one of the biggest threats that AI poses to us is not that AI will take over and robots will take over. You'll have Starnet or whatever they call the Terminator scenario. That's not the biggest danger for us. The biggest dangers for us as human beings that AI poses is that it erodes our agency. We will end up delegating everything to AI, including our thinking processes, right? So let's say you're learning something, you're in school, you're learning multiplication, division, and you will be tempted. You know what? Hey, AI, I have this problem for homework. Show me the step-by-step solution. You get it? Copy it down, done. Right? So you don't learn a thing. You just learn how to copy things. That's a very big temptation if you're a kid, because math is hard, right? We've all been there, haven't we? I remember when I was a kid, I was made to do some division problems. And I remember, I don't know how I did that in that formative stage. I came up with an answer which had multiple decimal points. I once did that. I mean, I've come a long way from there, but yeah, you got if you don't explain, if the right person doesn't explain how things are to be done, then you will not get the concepts right, and then you will be tempted to just ask AI to solve the problem, and you'll copy it down step by step. So the main thing is, don't allow this scenario to happen where AI is available readily so that you can just take shortcuts in life. But what can AI be used for is a good question. AI can be used to boost creativity. I mean, you can ask AI, instead of doing my homework for me, explain to me, how do I understand how to solve the problem? Give me a set of problems that are progressively more difficult, and at each stage explain the concepts to me, and give me some illustrative examples of how that is done, and then ask me to solve the problem, to which you will not give the solution until I give you what I was able to do what kind of solution I was able to find. So if you do it in that way, then AI can be a great learning tool. But that's a harder process. You've got to use AI as a tutor. So AI can be used to learn things brilliantly. You can learn any goddamn topic in the world today, from first principles, from the very ABCs, all the way to the most advanced PhD level. You can do that if you use AI the right way. So the biggest danger of AI is that it will erode human agency. I see so many people do this. They just delegate all their thinking to AI. Hey AI, hey ChatGPT, is this true? Hey Grok, is this true? Try and figure things out yourself, right? But they won't. I think that's the biggest problem right now. Yeah. So, is there any other do's and don'ts I can think of? I suppose not. I think that's the major thing I would say right now. Yeah. So, yeah, all the best, Animish. All the best. TSP says, why did Agni missile test have a weird smoke trail? Well, maybe they used some different kind of propulsive chemical in the AI in the Agni missile. So yeah, this test happened yesterday or whenever. Yeah, and I saw some images of the smoke trail. Now, what's interesting is not that the smoke trail looked different. What's interesting is that the missile changed its path and went somewhere else. Yeah. So, some, I mean, you can do that. You can have missiles that do change their path, but this is supposed to be ballistic missile, not a cruise missile. Cruise missiles, they behave like aircraft, which means they can change their direction. Ballistic missiles typically have a ballistic profile, a trajectory, a parabolic trajectory. They don't suddenly veer off and go somewhere else. So it looks like the Agni missile did that, which is rather interesting, yes, I would say. About the smoke trail, it depends on the kind of chemical you're using for propulsion, the fuel, what fuel you're using for propulsion. The Agni missile typically would have a solid fuel, right? Not a liquid fuel. Yeah. So maybe they change the chemical profile of the propulsive of the fuel, possibly that. Yeah. Yeah. Right. That's what I can think of. Okay. Aditya Yadav says, anything on Yadav history, LOL. You made me who I am. Okay, well, I'm glad. Anything on Yadav history? I look, I have not really studied Yadav history in any sufficient detail at all. Obviously, the Yadavs are descendants of the great Yaduvansh. One of the greatest members of the Yaduvansh was Shri Krishna himself, right? But beyond that, I don't really know much about the Yadavs. I've not studied the history of the Yadavs. I'm not sure there's any textbook or any history book that deals with the history of the Yadava lineage. I'm not sure if that even exists. Right? Has anybody bothered to research this and write this? I don't know. So my knowledge and understanding of Yadav history will be, well, I'm sure it will not be any better than yours. Maybe you will know more about it, right? So yeah, I'm sorry. I don't really know much about Yadav history. Sorry. Devansh says, how did Indonesia, Malaysia become Muslim from Hindu, Buddhist, animist nations despite having a rich history and dharmic traditions? Yeah. So first of all, where is Indonesia, Malaysia? We haven't opened the map thus far, so it's almost 40 minutes in. So let's open the map. So, in case some of you aren't aware, let's find these wonderful parts of the world. So it's not far from India. We have the Kalinga Mahasagar, which is called the Bay of Bengal these days. You go eastwards from there, and you reach Indonesia, Malaysia. Before that, we have Thailand and Myanmar. So this region, Thailand, Myanmar, etc., was called Suvarna Bhumi. And then you have Malaysia and Indonesia. Indonesia is this gigantic archipelago. It's like 1,500 kilometers wide, if I'm not mistaken. Let's measure the distance from tip to tip. It's 5,000 kilometers wide. Would you believe it? Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any nation that's that wide. Anyhow, so, and the history of this region, the history of the whole of Southeast Asia, whether it is Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, whether it's the Philippines, whether it's Malaysia, whether it is Indonesia, etc., all of this entire region was Hindu. Okay, and the Indians were responsible for slowly, gradually Hinduizing the entire region. They were the great people of Kalinga, who had been trading with this region for more than 3,000 years. More than 3,000 years ago, they started the trade, and they eventually settled there. Many of them settled there. Many of them married with the locals, and that's how we had kingdoms like Funan and so on and so forth. And Indonesia, which is Yawadvip and Sumatra, right? They gave rise to some of the greatest Hindu kingdoms, empire, like the Majapahit Empire. So that is the history. I mean, we still have great temples in the region. You still find so many rich archaeological sites which clearly show the Hindu history of the region. Even in the Philippines, you find gold inscriptions written on gold with Sanskrit, which are in Sanskrit. Yeah, so that's the history. Now, what happened is the question. The question you're asking is not about the Hindu history of the region. You're asking how did Malaysia and Indonesia become Muslim. So first of all, there was a Hindu period. Then there was a Buddhist period, not in Indonesia ever, but in Southeast Asia. For example, in Vietnam you had the Champa kingdom and an empire, which was a Shaivite empire, which eventually later became Buddhist. In Cambodia, you had great Hindu kingdoms. Cambodia, Thailand nearly went to war recently on multiple occasions for the possession of a 1,000-year-old Shiva temple. So it was mainly Hinduism, and later you had Buddhist elements coming in. Angkor Wat later became a Buddhist temple. It was anyway a Vishnu temple initially, and so on and so on. So, how did the Islamization happen? See, this happened in the past 500 or so years, roughly, okay, give or take a little bit. In the last 1,000 years, India fell to foreign occupation gradually, creeping foreign occupation, starting from the northwest, starting from Gandhar. Gandhar was the first part of India that fell to the Turks. And then gradually the Turks, over the centuries, slowly crept inwards. By the 1500s, they had started not really taking over parts of India. By the 1700s, you had Aurangzeb, who had, overlordship over a significant portion of the subcontinent. So India is a very ancient civilization. And one of the characteristics of a civilization is that a civilization is a net exporter of culture. And that's how Southeast Asia was Indianized. Then India came under foreign occupation, starting, let's say, 1,000 years ago, roughly. That's when India's cultural exports start faltering and eventually stop. Because India is now ruled by a foreign culture who are trying to actively destroy Indian culture. So the connection between India and Southeast Asia was severed, especially after the end of the Chola Empire. So that's how other influences started creeping into Malaysia, Indonesia. You had Arab traders and so on. And then they somehow, over time, they succeeded in converting local chieftains and kings to the religion of the Arabs, which is Islam. And then obviously, conversions happen and so on. So that's roughly how it happened. Now, the exact processes, dynamics and statics and dynamics of that we can go into in detail, but that's a history lesson. Overall, I can tell you this is how it happened. It happened because India came under foreign subjugation, under foreign occupation, and India's connection with Southeast Asia got cut off. For Southeast Asia, for Indonesia, for Malaysia, India was the homeland and the cultural heartland. Right? The connection was there, constant connection. You would have people from these regions come to India for knowledge, for wisdom, for learning, to enroll in the various Vishwavidyalayas and all. But now these are all destroyed. So no one's coming to India anymore, and slowly the regions drift apart. That's how it happened overall. The Strummer says, how Pakistan gets Chinese and US fund even after deceiving. There's a tweet from Donald Trump from 2019 or wherever, where he is very critical of Pakistan, saying that Pakistan has been deceiving us, right? So the Pakistanis have been deceiving everybody, and yet they get the support they need from the US and formerly from China, even now from China, if it concerns a matter related to India. Why is that? Have you seen what Pakistan exists? Yeah, let's go to the map. Pakistan, I keep saying, right, if you are a regular viewer of the channel, you will know, I keep saying that India's geographical location is God-gifted. I mean, imagine a geographical location like this. You are dominating the entire Indian Ocean region, all the way to Antarctica. If you have any agency, you can go all the way to Antarctica. India's got a God-gifted geographical location. But what about Pakistan? Pakistan also has a, let's say, God-gifted geographical location, in the sense that it actively cuts off India from the rest of Eurasia, from Central Asia and Europe. Pakistan cuts India's access off to everything. And the rest of India's access is cut off by Chinese-occupied Tibet. And India has scored 1 million own goals in the far east of India, and we have never developed any railways and road lines to the rest of Southeast Asia because our leaders were sleeping and they're still sleeping. So Pakistan's role is to first of all cut off India's access to Eurasia. Secondly, to keep bleeding India with 1,000 cuts. And since the US and China both agree that India must not rise, that's why Pakistan is their most natural minion and troublemaker to leverage against India. And that's why Pakistan, no matter what it does, it gets support from the US and even from China. The Chinese and the Americans are adversaries, but they agree on one thing and one thing only, that India must not rise. Okay? Now, are they right to do this, wrong to do this? There is no right or wrong in geopolitics. There are interests. It is in America's interest that India doesn't rise the way China did. It's in China's interest that India doesn't rise further and potentially become as strong as China. So both the US and China, out of self-interest, agree on only one thing: India must not rise. It's a logical approach for them to have, right? And so that's why they both support Pakistan, even though they are both adversaries of each other. Okay. Kakashi says, UFO distraction from Iran, Epstein files, US economy. I would agree with you. And I said that a while ago, didn't I? That the third Gulf War launched by Israel and the US on Iran was a distraction from the Epstein files, which mentioned some very prominent people in the US. I wonder who they are. Did I forget their names? Maybe DJT, right? So Epstein files were swept under the rug, under the carpet, because this war was launched on Iran. Now Iran succeeded in defeating the US and Israel and whoever else. That's been a debacle for the US. It's actually humiliating. Their military bases in the region have been destroyed by Iran. That's humiliating. So now let's get something else. Let's get people talking about something else. Let them forget about Iran. So let's talk about UFOs. Oh, the aliens are here. Well, show us evidence of the aliens. Are they here to serve man? Are they here in peace? What are they here for? Yeah, okay. So I agree with you, Kakashi. I agree with you. It's a distraction. Nothing substantial has been released in these UFO files. It's a distraction. Minimalist Maverick. Good to see you, sir. Minimalist Maverick. Why do US leftists want to jala Israel and Parmanufy India? Why do US leftists dislike Israel and maybe do something nasty to India? Well, India is an evil Hindu nation, and leftists typically hate Hindus. See, the leftist ideology is also an Abrahamic ideology, and they hate polytheists. So that's the deal. That's why they are not very big fans of India. When it comes to Israel, what do the leftists in the US believe? The leftists in the US, they support the Palestinian cause. Okay, there's been this nexus of the Islamists and the leftists that happened in the past few decades in the US, and that's why the leftists make common cause with the Palestinians. And they claim that Israel is illegally occupying Palestinian territory and they are doing all kinds of terrible things to Palestine. And that's why they dislike Israel. When it comes to so the reason they dislike Israel is because Israel is allegedly being cruel to the Palestinians, allegedly. And the reason the leftists want to do nasty things to India is because we are the last surviving polytheistic civilization, and we refuse to stop being polytheists. They hate us for that. Krishant Bordoloy says, why are some people saying that Bengal mandate is undemocratic, and some outlets are outright publishing that Hindus must vote on caste lines to protect secularism? Even international media is covering it. Okay. So listen, I don't know what people are saying about the Bengal election result. Okay, I don't follow national politics. I don't look into that. Of course, it is important. It does affect all of us, and I would be lying if I would say that I was not pleased with the result. The result did please me. I'm very happy for the people of Bengal. Right, the long nightmare for Bengal is finally over, and I hope the people of Bengal get the Bengal they want and this so richly deserve. Right, one of the greatest regions of India with such great rich history and culture and so much more. I hope Bengal revives now. So that's my personal views on the election result. Okay, now some people allegedly, you're saying, they are saying that Bengal mandate is undemocratic. How is it undemocratic? How? This is an election result. This is the victory of democracy. That the people decided that so and so who was ruling Bengal for so and so time must now depart from the scene. And we now want a new government of a different party. That is the victory of democracy. This is democracy in action. This is how democracy should be. The people's will is democracy. And the people have chosen a new path. If that isn't democratic, then what is democratic? Some outlets are publishing Hindus must vote on caste lines. Well, I despise this caste thing. Like I've said so many times, caste must be eradicated from India. It's not Hindus who are perpetuating caste. It's the government of India that's perpetuating caste by making everything about caste. Every government document, like your birth certificate and your school living certificate and God knows what else, it mentions caste. Right? Voting is on the basis of caste lines in many local elections and all. Eradicate caste, annihilate caste. But the government won't do it. And then they will say Hindus are evil and casteist. Eradicate caste. But they won't do it. So the government perpetuates this problem in India, which the British created, by the way, by consolidating, by codifying 4 castes, when we have thousands, tens of thousands of Varna Jatis, right? Jatis especially, not Varnas. Varnas were always 4. I mean, you had 7 too in the past, whatever. India's society has always organized itself organically. And the outcome of that is the Varna Jati system. Every society has this, right? Every society has social organization and social stratification that happens over time. It's no big deal. Every society has that. But we are vilified for that. Now, so we have the situation in India where all the voting, especially in state elections and all, happens on the basis of caste. Hindus are divided on the basis of caste by the government of India. And then these outlets, they take advantage of that and they want Hindus to vote on caste lines. And how does that protect secularism? I have no idea. In the international media, they will cover it in their own way, which is going to be an anti-India way, especially the BBCs and the CNNs and all those, Western organizations. There is nothing surprising about that. So some people are saying that the Bengal mandate is undemocratic and so on. It's because they are upset that there's been a change that's been brought into Bengal by the people, by the will of the people of Bengal. I would say we should rejoice in it. Right? We should rejoice in it. Of course, I am not displeased with the result, which indicates I have some bias. Of course, everyone's biased. If someone tells you they're not biased, they're lying to you. They're lying to your face. I know I'm biased. Every individual, every human being has some inbuilt inherent biases. So do I. And at least I tell you this, I say this openly, right? All right. Sergeant Skylan says, Trump personally commented on BJP victory in West Bengal. Well, Trump does a million things a day. I mean, if you see his Truth Social, it's hard to keep track of what he's saying. So he perhaps must have made some throwaway comment, okay, about the BJP's victory in West Bengal. Or maybe it's an indication of something. We'll have to see about that. But first of all, this doesn't concern Trump. I mean, if there's an election in, let's say, Pennsylvania, and Mr. Modi comments about that, what will the Americans think? The Americans will say that this doesn't concern India, right? So our stand should be this is an internal matter of India and Trump should stay out of it. But of course, Trump is Trump and he will do whatever it does. So, okay. All right. Okay, Mr. Trump. Devik Shriyan says, saw a couple of videos from Western news channels. They're crying over India implementing stronger regulations on NGOs. They say India targets churches. Okay, I haven't seen this. Okay. India implementing stronger regulations on NGOs. NGOs are a huge problem. There are more NGOs in India per capita than schools per capita. Do you know that? This whole NGO industry is a huge scam. Gigantic scam. And NGOs are used by the West to infiltrate other countries, especially countries that they seek to do regime changes in, to infiltrate the countries, target countries, and interfere in the internal workings of the countries. NGOs, I would say, should be banned in India. Let them cry about this. NGOs serve no good purpose in society. Maybe a handful of them may be good. Maybe a handful of them are good. I'll tell you what. Let's say you have a NGO, hypothetically, okay, some hypothetical NGO that, let's say, works for the upliftment of homeless people, or maybe NGO that works for the upliftment of underprivileged children. And they raise money from the public, let's say. Hypothetical cases, okay, no, I'm not naming anybody. Let's say these are hypothetical organizations, and let's say they raise 100 crore a year, hypothetically. Now, how do they raise the 100 crores? Please donate to help the needy children. That's what they will tell you. So you will donate because it's a good cause, right? Needy children. You will obviously, feel something in your heart, and you'll donate. And let's say overall, because of people like you who donate for these good causes, valuable causes, these organizations, let's say hypothetically, raise 100 crore a year. Now, how is the money used is the question. Will that money be used for children's welfare? Maybe 30-40% will be used for children's welfare. The rest of it will be used for salaries of their employees, directors. And let's say you go and look into the actual salaries they're paying. Let's say they've employed a nurse somewhere, okay, a lady, a nurse, to give injections and take temperatures and all. And let's see how much they're paying. The nurse, you will find, is getting 1 lakh rupees a month. How much is the director getting? How much is a manager getting? I assure you it's going to be more than a nurse. They're getting lavish salaries. If you see their business expenses, they'll be buying SUVs. They'll have gigantic office complexes. So the majority of the money goes into these avenues. And how much is actually used for uplifting the underprivileged children? Maybe 20-30%. And then there are these religious NGOs whose actual purpose is only to convert people to foreign religions. So this is a gigantic scam that's happening in India. NGOs, the overwhelming majority of NGOs are scams. Not all. There are some NGOs that are, I'm sure, genuinely doing great work. But I would say the overwhelming majority are scams. Okay? And these people who are saying India is targeting churches, they can go take a hike. Mind your own goddamn business. Get lost. TSP says, what advantage does Optosar bring to defense? What is Optosar? SAR sounds like synthetic aperture radar. Now, Optosar, I don't know what it is, but SAR, synthetic aperture radar, it is a technology that enables satellites to take images of the surface of the earth, even at night, even when you have cloudy weather, even when you have heavy rainfall, which means that the ground is obscured from orbit. And still, if you have SAR, you can take images of what's happening on the surface of the planet. Of course, they don't look like your photographs. They look different. And you need to know how to interpret what the images are telling you. And that's why we have trained professionals. And also you can use AI algorithms and whatnot to do that. So that is synthetic aperture radar. Let's say you have a spy satellite or military satellite that wants to keep an eye on what's happening in the India-Tibet border 24/7, including at night. You can do it with a synthetic aperture radar installed on a satellite. Or you want to keep an eye on Pakistani terrorists trying to infiltrate into India, or Bangladeshi infiltrators trying to infiltrate into India, or cookie terrorists trying to come into India from Myanmar. You can keep an eye on them in the dark, in heavy rainfall or whatever, through SAR. Now, what is Opto-SAR? I'm not sure. Let me find out. So that's a specific kind of radar that's installed on satellites, remote sensing satellites. What is Opto-SAR? Opto-SAR It's an innovative satellite imaging technology developed by an Indian startup, Galaxy Eye, that fuses high resolution optical, multispectral, and synthetic aperture radar SAR sensors on a single platform. Okay, so you have high resolution optical imagery that's fused with SAR, like I said, synthetic aperture radar. So it's like you get the best of both the worlds. Okay, you have multispectral high resolution optical imaging, which is what your eyes can see and maybe what the eyes of bats and insects can see, different spectra. So humans can see Vibgyor, right? Vibgyor, that that particular band in the electromagnetic spectrum: violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, Vibgyor, right? That's all we can see. But bats can see other wavelengths of light that we can't see, and insects can see some wavelengths of light that we can't see. Bats can see, insects can see birds can see ultraviolet, and so on. So when you have multispectral high resolution imaging, it gives you the ability to see in spectra that the human eye can't see, but the satellite, the instrument will detect things in those spectra as well. So there is that, multispectral optical imaging that's installed on the satellite, and you also have synthetic aperture radar, which will allow you to peer through clouds and see things in the darkness as well. So you have a satellite imaging technology that combines the best of both the technologies. So that's, I think, what this Optosar is. And this satellite was launched on the 3rd of May via SpaceX. Why was it launched via SpaceX? Do we not have rockets? Oh, yeah, ISRO. Okay. Yeah, okay. So we will not get into that matter about ISRO, but okay, it was launched via SpaceX. So that's the advantage it brings to defense. It allows you to see what's happening on the surface of the planet in so many different ways. You can combine all of the data together to get like way better understanding of what's happening. That's the advantage it brings. Okay, Piyush Shukla says Nepal cancelled meeting with our Ministry of External Affairs, Vikram Mistry, saying he's too small to meet him. Looks like Nepal needs to be schooled. What do you think? Financial aid, petrol, maybe? Look, we have no issue with Nepal as such. Our problem is the regime that's currently ruling Nepal, the Discord regime. What's his name? Balen Shah. That's a regime change that the US effected in Nepal, right? Now he's an American asset, Balen Shah. The United States has a very clear policy of containing India in the subcontinent, which means do regime changes all over the place and install hostile regimes in all these countries, whether it is East Pakistan, West Pakistan, Nepal. They want to install regimes that are hostile to India. You have the American ambassador, what's his name? Sergio Gore, who visits Kathmandu from time to time to give instructions to their minion, Mr. Balen Shah. So Balen Shah, if he's acting all big and all, it's because he's got the support of the superpower. That's why, right? That's all it is. So I'm not aware of whether they cancelled some meeting or whatever, saying he's too small to meet him. The issue is not Nepal. The issue is not the people of Nepal. They are our own people. The people of Nepal are our own people, right? We are not different peoples, us in Nepal. We are the same people. The issue is this regime of Balen Shah. The problem is India is too weak to control what's happening in the subcontinent. Even in the subcontinent, the Americans are more powerful than us. That is the issue. My point is, what action should India take? India should not take any stupid action like blockading Nepal and stopping the sale of petrol to Nepal. That will only alienate the people of Nepal. It will create hardships for the people of Nepal. And then the Nepalese politicians will further take advantage of that. What we need to do is if the Americans can do a regime change in Nepal, we should do a counter regime change in Nepal. That's what I would recommend we should do. Piyush Shukla says, Pranam, how did you overcome lust? Please guide. How do you overcome lust? I mean, see, do you have to overcome lust? It's a natural function of a living being, right? It's one of the things that's part of your life. Um, I mean, there are, historically in India, you had these different stages of life, right? Brahmacharya ashram, then Grihastha ashram, then there were two more. At the end, you go to the forest or something. So Grihastha ashram is about procreating, having a family, having children, having a spouse, and that's normal. Why do you have to subdue that particular drive that you have as a human being? So lust is a natural thing. It is there in all humans. I don't see any reason to subdue it or overcome it or treat it as an enemy. Channel it in the right direction, right? That's what I would say. Of course, there are issues today because you have access to all kinds of ridiculous, rotten garbage on the internet, and that can fixate your brain and get it stuck on certain things, like all that. So you should avoid that. You should avoid, like they say, pornography and all that garbage. Avoid that. Apart from that, the sexual drive, all of that, that's just a natural thing in all human beings, in all living beings. And there is nothing to be ashamed of when it comes to that. And it's not something to be avoided. It has to be present in your life in the right proportion. And then if that's the case, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. All right. All the best. Highlander Monk says, how to identify passion? Is passion proportional to performance? Is that the proportionality sign? I think it is. How to identify one's passion? I think ask yourself, what is it that let's say when you were 3 years old, what did you want to be when you grew up? What really excited you? That's your passion, right? But you know what? Your passion doesn't have to be necessarily your career. Maybe you are passionate about, let's say, I don't know, maybe you're passionate for football, but maybe you're not athletic. So you don't, if you're passionate about something, it doesn't necessarily have to be your career. It can be your hobby, right? So don't make the mistake of wanting to follow your passion in your career. Identify what you're good at professionally and do that as your career, and keep following your passion as a hobby. That will keep you nicely balanced in life. You do your work, come home and do your passion, that sort of thing. So one of the ways of identifying what your passion is to ask yourself, go back to your childhood when you were 3, 4, 5 years old. What got you excited? What did you want to do when you grew up? What did you want to be? What kind of person did you want to be when you grew up? Like, for example, when I remember when I was like 2 years old, I wanted to be a pilot. I'm not a pilot today, right? It doesn't always work that way. But I was also fascinated about science, super curious about space and all that. Well, that's kind of what I took on later in life, right? So you will be fascinated about multiple things as a kid, but one or two of those could be your genuine passion. All right. Okay. All the best. Highlander Monk. All the best. Discover your passion. Kakashi says, 1 out of 2. Why does the US not treat India the same way it treats Iran? Is it because Iran is more hardline and anti-imperialist, or because it has oil, or because it has a smaller GDP than India? Okay. And why isn't Iran pragmatic, non-confrontational, non-anti-imperialist, ideological, moralistic, and not resist US-led financial economic order and be like India? These are very good questions. Iran has chosen to be super confrontational, let's say, with the US. So I think the US-Iran relationship started off on the wrong foot, first of all, in 1979. When the Iranian, the new regime, or at least their workers, they took more than 400 or whatever number it was, not 400. They took a whole bunch of Americans hostage from the US embassy and held them for more than 400 days. So that started off the relationship on the wrong foot completely after the 1979 revolution. And then the Americans went ahead and had Saddam Hussein launch a disastrous war, a ruinous war on Iran, which lasted like 8 years or whatever, right? So after that, the relationship was irreparable, essentially. And Iran said that, if you people are going to try and destroy us, and remember, the 1979 revolution ousted Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, who had turned Iran into a vassal state of the US. The US was extracting oil out of Iran. Iran did not have sovereignty over its own natural resources at the time. So the US was exploiting Iran. And the Islamic Revolution ended that. So it ended Iran being exploited by the US the way India was being exploited by the British and the East India Company. It ended that sort of situation. So obviously the relationship is not going to be great, right? And the US tried to destroy Iran via Saddam Hussein, by arming Saddam Hussein, by giving him as many weapons and whatever he wanted to destroy Iran. The US tried to do that. So then Iran said, okay, if that's the approach you're going to have, let's fight. Let's be confrontational. So that's the deal. You have to understand history. You have to understand how the relationship progressed after 1979 to understand why Iran is confrontational with the US today. Because the US has, for decades, tried to destroy Iran, first via war, using Saddam Hussein as a proxy, and then through crippling sanctions that have caused so much suffering to the people of Iran. Right? India hasn't been treated that way by the Americans. The Americans did not occupy India, the British did, right? And India has been very, very, very open to the US. I mean, Indian officials, etc., most of them have families who are US citizens. So India is actually, you could say, India's governance is captured, you could say, to a certain extent by the Americans. So if they can hypothetically influence India strongly, let's put it that way, then why will they want to be confrontational with India? So India, you see, that's the deal with India. India is still mentally enslaved, slave-minded. We feel the if somebody speaks English, they're superior to us, and we have to serve them. That slave-minded approach has been passed down to us by certain people since, well, who served the British for 250 years. And the British left behind such people in power after 1947. So that's been the approach of Indians towards the US. The Americans speak English, so we believe, so some of our people believe that they are superior and they have to be served. That sort of issue is there, you see. So Iran has more self-respect than India. To put it very crudely, Iran has more self-respect than India, right? So that's the deal. That's the deal. Be like India. They don't have the greatest of respect for India, by the way. Neither do the Chinese. The Chinese don't respect India. I don't think the Iranians have too much respect for India either. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Pratadana, good to see you, sir. Did you see the Luvian seal of the great king Muwatalli? Well, I am aware of Muwatalli, but I haven't seen his great Luvian seal. Let's find out. Muwatalli Luvian seal. So this is a Babylonian king or something, I'm sure, from the Mesopotamia region, right? Muwatalli Luvian king. Luvian seal. Muwatalli. The Hittite king Muwatalli. Okay. Hittite king. So this is the seal of Muwatalli. Well. I can see a bull, which looks very suspiciously like a zebu bull, which obviously is an Indian bull. And then you have what looks like the Zoroastrian kind of winged thing on top. This hieroglyphic kind of looking script, etc. And this is Muwatalli II in the embrace of the storm god, which could be Indar. Okay, so there's multiple seals that you can see, but this one clearly has the zebu bull and other symbolism. Right, so Muatali was a Hittite king. The Hittite kings were of Indian ancestry, just like the Mitanni. And we know this because they said that because there is the record, right, historical record of a peace treaty between the Hittites and the Mitanni. And the peace treaty invokes Vedic gods, Mitra, Varun, etc., the Ashwins, as witnesses to the treaty. So clearly, both sides worshipped those gods, which means both sides were of Indo-Aryan or Indian or Aryan origin, ancestry. Right, very interesting. Infinix says, thought experiment. If aliens exist, what happens to the concept of religion on Earth? Nothing whatsoever happens to it. Nothing whatsoever. I mean, how does it change religion on Earth? Okay, let's talk about various religions. The Abrahamic religions say that there is a god called Yahweh. Is it El or whatever? Their prime god is Yahweh, right? Jehovah, Yahweh, who created the universe or whatever, and he considers certain people to be super special and others not, whatever. So if aliens exist, maybe that completely upsets the apple cart of the Abrahamic religions. That if Yahweh considers certain people to be super special, why are the aliens so much more advanced than your special people? So that kind of destroys that entire system, right? When it comes to the dharmic religions, well, our religions say that there are multiple universes and whatnot, and there's one Brahma who exists for the duration of the existence of this universe, but there are multiple Brahmas out there, and so on. And aliens, they just fit naturally into it, right? So when it comes to the dharmic religions, aliens are no issue whatsoever. They're a natural outcome of Hindu cosmology. Right, so if aliens exist and turn up on our doorstep tomorrow, it will be the death knell of the Abrahamic religions. But the dharmic religions will do just fine. Pyari Priya says, is Dugin's Great War of Continents the end times? Well, I haven't been able to get a hold of Dugin's books. You know, Alexander Dugin. He is a Russian philosopher. He's a Russian Eurasianist. He's got interesting takes on Twitter, but I haven't read his book on geopolitics. He's got multiple books, but those are not available in print, unfortunately. I mean, you could try and acquire them online through various means, which is, I'm sure, possible, but I haven't done that. So I don't know. The Great War of the Continents. So I'm not familiar with this concept of Dugin's because I've not read his books, but let's try and find out. Alexander Dugin, Great War of the Continent. Let's go. Alexander Dugin. The Great War of the Continents, it's a 1991-92 manifesto by Russian ultra-nationalist philosopher Alexander Dugin, outlining a new neo-Eurasianist vision of a civilizational clash. It frames Russia as the eternal Rome, Eurasia, leading a battle against the eternal Carthage, a materialistic, individualistic West. That's a very interesting framing. Russia is the eternal Rome, and the West, the materialistic, decadent, individualistic West, is the eternal Carthage. Well, Rome did defeat Carthage and destroyed it completely. Carthago delenda est, right? That's interesting. So the War of the Continents is this. His vision of a clash between the East and the West. East led by Russia, and the West, which is the decadent, individualistic, materialistic West. So he argues that the core of history is a conflict between maritime powers and land powers. Okay. And it defines Western values as despiritualizing and a threat that seeks to dominate the world, mandating an eternal war until one side prevails, creating a Roman Eurasian empire to oppose Western hegemony and restore traditional values. And so on. The Foundations of Geopolitics. That's the book I was referring to. I've never been able to acquire it somehow. So these ideas were later refined in this book, The Foundations of Geopolitics, and so on and so forth. Okay. So is Dugin's War of the Continents, Great War of Continents, the end times? Well, if that war happens, it's Russia versus the US, which could end up being end times if it acquires a nuclear dimension for sure. Because Russia has more nukes than the West, and the West also has a tremendous amount of nukes. I'm talking about the US. If the Russians on US, if the Americans go to war face to face, one on one, that can very quickly end up becoming the end times. Yeah, if it acquires a nuclear dimension. So yeah, it could end up being the end times if it ever happens. One hopes it never happens. One hopes this war doesn't ever happen. Anuj Dikshit, thank you very much. Anuj Dikshit ji, thank you so much. Rajat says, how are you? I'm good. I'm great. I hope you're also doing great. In mythology, one kalpa is equal to 1000 Mahayugas, which is 9.3 billion years. Exactly the life of star, sun-like star and solar system. That's one creation cycle. Is this just coincidence? I don't know, sir. Unfortunately, I don't know about these things. I understand cosmology, astronomy. I don't know what is a kalpa, one Mahayuga, etc. How do we know 1000 Mahayugas is 9.3 billion years? I know that there is something called Hindu cosmology, which is the only cosmology that makes sense on in cosmological terms. Because see, the Big Bang happened 13.8 billion years ago, and Hindu cosmology talks about time frames that are larger than that. This is the only cosmology that makes sense. But I don't know what one kalpa is, one Mahayuga is, and all that. I don't know if it's coincidence or not. I don't ever make the mistake of mixing religion with science, or spirituality with science, or philosophy with science. I keep these two things completely separate, right? So I don't know what the connection is. If it's a coincidence, maybe it's a coincidence, maybe no, maybe not. But I am not the right person to answer this question, because I understand astrophysics and cosmology. I don't have that much of an understanding of Hindu cosmology and the religious aspects of that. So I can't really say. Yeah. Prasaradana says, what is Optostar satellite? Well, Optosar satellite. So we just discussed that a while ago. The Optosar satellite is a new satellite that's been launched by a startup using a SpaceX rocket. And this satellite, combines the best of both the worlds: the synthetic aperture radar technology and multispectral optical imaging technology. The synthetic aperture radar technology allows the satellite to peek through cloud cover, storms, rainfall, snowfall, whatever, and darkness of night. And so the satellite, whether it is dark, whether it's raining, snowing, whatever, it can see what's happening on the ground. It can peer through all that cloud cover and whatnot, or it can see in darkness if required. So that is synthetic aperture radar. And the opto part of it is multispectral optical imaging, which allows the satellite to see the surface of the earth, not just in the visible spectrum that's visible to humans, but also in other wavelengths, like the various ultraviolet wavelengths, or even possibly infrared wavelengths. So the satellite has the best of both the worlds, both these capabilities, and that's why it's fantastic. Kakashi says FSSAI is useless. India has horrible food, water, air. We should have standards like the Nordics in Europe, but instead we are like the US, who feed their people garbage. Okay, let's see what is FSSAI. FSSAI. What is AI? What is FSSAI? Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. The Food Safety and Standards Authority of India is a statutory body under the administration of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. It regulates the manufacture, storage, distribution, sale, and import of food articles, while also establishing standards to ensure food safety. Okay, so that's what FSSAI is. Okay, that's fantastic. Have you gone to various fast food outlets? McDonald's, KFCs. Why don't they display the nutritional data of their burgers and pizzas and whatnot on the package? You go to the US, you go to the West, every food item, for each food item, they're going to display the nutritional information. How many calories, kilocalories, what's the macronutrient breakdown, protein, carbohydrates, fats, what kind of ingredients are used in there, and so on. In India, nothing. I don't know what the FSSAI is doing, but it's not doing a lot to safeguard the health of Indians. Right? In India, everything is half-hearted. In India, everything is unfinished. Everything, whether it is a pavement that is being rebuilt or a road that has been dug up and then it's being repaved, or whatever. Everything in India is half finished and half-hearted. Everything is perfunctory. Everything is done in name only. Oh, we've made this new regulations on paper. Our job is done. You're never going to implement or enforce anything. A nation of super low standards. And these low standards don't come from the people of India, they come from the government of India. Rajat says, in 2022, Bell's inequality was violated in an experiment, and that proves that the universe is not locally real. Do we live in a simulation or Maya as per Hinduism? Listen, I am not the right person to ask a question that compares science and religion. I never ever make the mistake of comparing or combining science with philosophy or spirituality or religion. Science and religion are completely separate. They do not ever mix. As per me, I could be completely wrong and completely stupid about this, but that's who I am. Okay? Now, once that is said, Bell's inequality was violated in an experiment. This proves that the universe is not the universe is not local. It's a non-local universe. Does this mean that we live in a simulation? Okay, forget about the religious part. Does it mean we live in a simulation? Not necessarily. A non-local universe does not necessarily indicate that we are living in a simulation. How do you determine whether you're actually living in a simulation? That's the big question. I think it's a significant possibility that we could be living in a simulation, but how do we determine that it's the case? Yeah, does the universe resolve immediately when we look at it, or at what resolutions does it dissolve, and so on? That's a totally different question. So Bell's inequality being violated and proving that the universe is not local, that has actually nothing to do with a simulation. And Maya, as per Hinduism, that I'll not even go into. Okay, so it does not prove Bell's inequality being violated experimentally does not prove that the universe is a simulation. It doesn't prove that. Pratardana says, are you comfortable talking about Dravidism? I don't know much about Dravidianism. I know that the Aryan invasion theory, which later became an Aryan migration theory, which then will become a tourism and picnic theory, it is the source of this Aryan Dravidian divide that has been shoved down the throats of Indians. Right? There is no such thing as a Dravidian race or whatever. We are all the same people. But this has been taken up by the political parties in the southern part of India, who then create this victim narrative that that the people of the south, the so-called Dravidians, have been oppressed by the white Aryans, who are the northerners. Okay, for thousands of years, since 1500 BC or whatever, evil Nardis, that sort of thing, and that's the political ideology of Dravidianism or whatever. That's what I know about it. Beyond that, I don't get into local politics and all that. So, okay. Rithik says, will Sri Lanka be made a US vassal to contain India? It's possible. Very possible. Very possible. The objective of the US is to encircle India completely. So it makes sense for them to activate Sri Lanka also in the same manner that the Americans have activated West Pakistan, East Pakistan, Nepal, and so on. It's very possible. Yes. Akash Chaurasya says, would discovering aliens make us more united as a species or tear us apart? If the universe is 13.8 billion years old, where are all the ancient civilizations that should have had a 10 billion year head start? Okay. Well, if we discover aliens, will that make us more united as a species or tear us apart? It depends on whether the aliens are peaceful and friendly or whether they are hostile. If they are hostile, then I suppose we will have to stop fighting each other at least for a while and unite to fight off the alien threat if they are hostile. If the aliens are uninterested in us and they don't care about us and they're just passing through, then it won't unite us as a species. It won't. It won't necessarily tear us apart either. Okay. If the universe is 13.8 billion years old, which it is as per the best evidence that we have, it's not like somebody decided one day, okay, let's assign a random age to the universe. It's not like that. We have deduced that the universe is 13.8 billion years old on the basis of tremendous quantities and volumes of experimental evidence and observational evidence, and the best theories, scientific theories that we have that are tested. It's on the basis of that we have discovered that our best understanding or best calculation of the age of the universe is that it's 13.8 billion years old. It's not somebody randomly waking up one morning and saying, okay, we will decide that this is the age of the universe. It's not like that. So the universe is 13.8 billion years old. That's the best understanding we have, based on physics, based on calculations, based on observational evidence. So it is 13.8 billion years old. So then the question is, where are all the ancient civilizations that should have had a 10 billion year head start? Maybe they're all out there. And maybe civilizations don't last 10 billion years. A star like the sun has a what? A star like the sun will last about 10 billion years. It will live about 10 billion years. Look, the solar system is about 4.6 billion years old. The sun will exist another 5 billion years. So a star like the sun has about a 10 billion year lifetime. So does it mean that humanity will live 10 billion or 5 billion years more? I have no idea. I hope so, but there's no guarantee of it. So maybe advanced civilizations don't last that long. Maybe they last a couple of thousand years before they nuke themselves. The theory of the great filters, right? The great filters. The Fermi paradox, the great filters. Maybe advanced civilizations end up destroying themselves using the advanced technology they've built, invented. Maybe that's something that happens over and over again. So there is no guarantee that these that ancient civilizations will last 10 billion years. They will exist for 10 billion years. And even if they exist, maybe they are not advertising their existence by sending messages to all parts of the universe. Maybe they're just keeping quiet. Maybe they're not showing that they exist. So maybe they are there, but they're hidden. Or maybe they existed in the past, but they did not advertise their existence by sending out electromagnetic signals everywhere in the world. So what you're essentially asking is, where is everybody? If the universe is so old, why don't we see anything? Why don't we see any existence of aliens, any evidence of aliens? Well, maybe we are all alone, or maybe there's life everywhere, but it wants to stay hidden because it's afraid of what the others could do. That is a significant possibility. Anuj Dikshit says, is it possible at the time of Big Bang atoms were as big as the solar system? Okay. At the time of the Big Bang, the entire universe was compressed into an infinitesimal point. Okay? So the entire universe was compressed, was tinier than the tip of this pencil. Okay? That's how small the entire universe was. Now today the observable universe has a diameter of about 95 billion or so light years. And there's a much larger universe beyond that we can't observe. All of that was compressed into that little point. Okay? So when the Big Bang happened, there were no atoms. There was just pure energy. You had photons. And all four forces were unified into one grand unified force. So there were no atoms then. Okay? Atoms came much, much later. Much, much, much later. Atoms came, what, 300,000 to at least 200,000 years after the Big Bang. So at that time, there were no atoms, there were just photons and the very, very, very fundamental particles of the universe at most. Okay. Padma Kardi says, good course to learn narrative warfare for civilians. Good course to learn narrative warfare for civilians. I am not aware of any course about narrative warfare. I'm not aware of any. I did not even know that such courses existed if they did. Let's find out. Let's say what Google says. What's a good course to learn narrative warfare for civilians? Let's find out. There's no such course. Oh, interesting. For civilians looking to understand and engage in narrative warfare, defined as the battle over national self-image, cultural legitimacy, and the use of language to construct reality, several specialized non-military courses and foundational resources are available as of early 2026. These are American courses, I suppose. Disinformation and Narrative Warfare, New York University. Foundations of Narrative Conflict. What is this? Foundations of Narrative Conflict. There is AI-driven Narrative Warfare Essentials. Whatever that is. There's Unarmed Civilian Defense Course, Beyond War. So it looks like there are some courses available. What is this? NYU SPS. NYU SPS. So I'm not sure if these are all available in the public domain, but you can check it out. This foundational reading also, Introduction to Narrative Warfare, Primer and Study Guide by Dr. Ajit Maan and Paul Kubera, and Narrative Warfare by Dr. Ajit Maan, and so much more. And it looks like there are videos about this on YouTube. So it looks like such courses exist, which I was not aware of. Well, interesting, very interesting. So I think you can check it out and maybe acquire one or more of these courses. Yeah. All right. Interesting. Nabil Sarkar says, why all modern democracy results in two main parties ideology? It's not necessarily the case. Two main parties. I mean, the US has two main parties. In India, we only have one main party. We don't have two main parties. Your news anchors will try and portray everything as two parties, but there's only one major party in India today, which is the BJP. The Congress party used to be the biggest party in India, and it was so for the longest time, right? Since 1947. There was a time when the BJP had two members of parliament. The Congress had, like, I don't know, hundreds. But today, the fact is that the Congress party is no longer in the same league as the BJP, at least right now, right? So it's not like you have two reasonably equal main parties in India today. We have only one giant party, and the others are more like regional parties. So it's not always the case that way, right? It's not always the case. I mean, even in Bengal, you had the TMC. That was the biggest party, and it was, winning every election with large numbers. Now suddenly you have the BJP, which has taken over, which is one. And the TMC is now a small party, reduced to a small minority. So that is the thing about Indian democracy. It can throw up surprises sometimes, and maybe they're not surprises, but it's not always two main parties. TSP says, does Hinduism pay for not being expansionist? Yes. When you have a world of expansionists, but you choose to not be expansionist, you pay for it. But maybe that is what Hinduism is. It's not an expansionist proselytizing religion. It's not. But yeah, when the world is filled with predators and you are a non-predator, you're going to be taken advantage of, and you're going to end up being a big loser if you're not careful. So yes, Hinduism does pay for not being expansionist. But if Hinduism becomes expansionist, is it really Hinduism anymore? That's the question. Is it really Hinduism anymore? If it changes its core characteristics, is it really Hinduism anymore? That's the big question. Avik Chaudhary says, your take, UFOs are Vimanas that the US made from Indian texts and uses for its interests. Many inventors knew Sanskrit. Fibonacci even credited India. Fibonacci is a long time ago, yes? Fibonacci was centuries ago. What's my take? Vimanas. So how come the West has Indian Vimana texts, but we don't have them? I'm not sure about this. What I think is, if these UFOs, which do seem to exist, if they exist, and they do seem to exist, it most likely means that this is secret technology, secret military technology that's not been revealed to the public. Maybe they've found ways to manipulate gravity or whatever. But I think it's just advanced technology. Maybe NASA, maybe Lockheed Martin, maybe something else. Yeah, I don't think it is actual aliens. Did they acquire this technology by studying Indian texts? I don't know. I'm not saying it's not possible. It may be possible. Maybe they've stolen our text and we don't have the text anymore and they have the texts. It's possible, but I don't know about this. I can't. What's the point of speculating? I have zero evidence for this, right? So I don't know. I would say it is possible, but I have zero evidence of it. So it's also possible it is Mayan technology. The Mayas also had, texts that referred to flying vehicles. Maybe it's Mayan technology. That's also a possibility. Maybe it is secret European ancient technology. All these speculations are equally probable, right? So, can't really say. Okay, can't really say. Krishant Bordoloy says, you once said, we have too much democracy, too many regional parties. Looks like we are going to a one-party rule very soon if they play all their cards right. When I say we have too much democracy, I don't mean that we have too many regional parties and all that. That's okay. That is true democracy. What I said is that the Chinese say that India has too much democracy, which means India is too chaotic and too indisciplined. That's what the Chinese say. And they are absolutely right about it, India. India is not a disciplined nation. India is a nation of low standards. India is a nation where you have rules and laws that exist on paper, but they are never implemented. India is a nation where everything is done half-heartedly. Nothing is completed, nothing is finished. That's what the Chinese mean by too much democracy in India. And then there is the actual criticism of democracy, which is true, that in a system like what India has adopted, the Westminster system, it's a highly unstable and highly it's a highly unstable system, right? It's a fragile system. A coalition government or a hung assembly or hung parliament is a disaster. So that's what we mean by too much democracy. It doesn't mean that I'm talking about too many regional parties. That's fine. That's fine. You can have a good, strong democratic system even with lots of regional parties. As long as you can ensure that once an election result happens, you're going to have a stable government for 5 years. Then it's fine. But that's not the case in India. So, and even if you have one party rule in India, that one party has to keep pandering to the lowest denominator to get votes. Which what does it give rise to? Low standards, pandering to whoever, right? Appeasement, all of that. That's the problem, right? That's the problem. Anabil Sarkar says, your thought on the hantavirus outbreak. I think it's potentially dangerous and concerning, and we're going to have to keep an eye on that. So it looks like this outbreak has happened on a cruise ship, and one hears that possibly there is transmission that's happening from human to human, which typically in the past hasn't happened in the case of hantavirus, right? In the case of the flu virus, there is a rapid spread from humans to humans through sneezing and touch and whatnot. Even in the case of COVID, you had that. In the case of measles, it's very, very, very uh, contagious. In the case of Hanta virus, that wasn't the case. Human to human transmission was very rare. But it looks like it's happening on this ship, which is very concerning. And hantavirus has a much higher mortality rate than something like COVID. So which is why this outbreak, it has to be contained, otherwise it's very, very concerning. Yeah. TSP says, is the caste system embedded in Hinduism or a propaganda? What is this caste system, right? What is this caste system? Is it something that's special to India? What is the caste system? Four castes, four divisions of society. Did we have that in India historically before the British, made it mandatory? The British, they ossified this goddamn thing in India. They made it mandatory for every Indian to choose a caste, to declare a caste, and then that becomes a permanent on your permanent record. In India, in Bharatvarsha, we had the Varna Jati system. The Jati was important, your occupational lineage. And there were tens of thousands of Jatis in India. And their lifestyle depended on their Jati, not on their Varna. Right? So that is simply a society that has organized itself over thousands of years into a very highly functioning, very, very granularly organized society. That tells you that it's a very ancient society. Right? Without division of labor, without organization, without hierarchy, you don't have a functioning society, you don't have a functioning organization, you don't have a functioning military, you have no functioning thing at all. It tells you that India's society has organized itself over millennia. But the British came and they could not understand the tens of thousands of jatis. So they said, okay, 4 castes. And then they put it on everyone's birth certificate, everyone's death certificate, everyone's school leaving certificate. And now after independence, our slave-minded politicians have continued that. Okay? We had no caste. We had Varna Jati. This term caste came from the Europeans. And they have used it to demonize our civilization. Saying that we have been oppressing our people for thousands of years. And you have Indian political leaders who parrot that BS. Right? That our ancestors have oppressed our people. Your ancestors may have oppressed somebody. Mine did not. So, Clive Fawkins says, hypothetically, institutionalized autocracy versus democracy. Which is better for a well-developed and educated superpower country, which is a rival of the US? Autocracy. You can't be a rival of the US by being a democracy. You cannot take on the US or China while being a democracy. You have to be an autocracy. The US is not a democracy. It's an autocracy masquerading as a democracy. Okay? It's not a democracy. It pretends to be a democracy. Okay? Understand that. So you can't take on or challenge the US or China while being a nice, good boy democracy. Impossible. You need an autocracy. Obviously, you need a benevolent autocracy, a civilized autocracy that is grounded in India's culture and values. That's what you need. And that's what you had for thousands of years in India. Civilized, dharmic autocracies in the forms of kingdoms and empires. Krishant Bordoloy says, your shirt color is also the same as the Bengal mandate. Congratulations to the people of Bengal. All right. Congratulations to all the people of Bengal. Indeed. Pratardana says, confused. There's a party that lost, had 10% plus economic growth and supported tech startups. But the party was very anti-Hindu, feeling confused how to feel about it. So here I am clueless. Which party are you referring to? Because I don't follow domestic Indian politics to this extent that I can make out which party you're referring to and which state it ruled or governed. I can't say. So very anti-Hindu, I can think of a couple of parties. Sure. Are you talking about East? Are you talking about South? I'm not sure, but I can think of a couple of parties. Very anti-Hindu, I can think of at least a couple of parties. Now, which one of these had 10% plus economic growth and supported tech? Okay, tech startups. Now I'm thinking it's southern part of India, perhaps. Okay, you're giving some clues. Uh, but you're feeling confused how to feel about it. I don't know. So, like I said, I don't really follow Indian politics and the intricacies of each party and what their agendas are, and whether they support tech startups or not. I'm not sure. So I don't know. I don't know. See, what I would say is that political parties should support technological progress, economic progress, entrepreneurship, everything that's good for India. And they should also be civilizationally aligned with Indian civilization, with Indian cultural and civilizational values. That's what each party should do. I don't see why some parties have to be anti-Hindu. So if they do one thing but don't do the other, then that's a deal breaker for me. It's a deal breaker for me. Yeah? Rajat says, why Optosar? That's a good question you're asking here. Why Optosar was launched by SpaceX Falcon 9 and not GSLV? Is it sabotage fear? Navik 03 launching on 23rd May through GSLV. How important is it for India? Okay, first of all, I don't know why Optosar was launched by a SpaceX rocket, not GSLV. India launches like 5-6 rockets a year. Super low ambition nation. Not nation, but government has no ambition for ISRO. I mean, I am a vocal critic of the government of India for not having sufficient ambition in the space race. But to be fair, if you look at Russia, it's the same thing. So it's not like it's only India, okay? To be fair, even Vladimir Putin is doing a terrible job with Roscosmos and the Russian space industry. Terrible job. Maybe India is doing a better job with ISRO compared to what Vladimir Putin is doing. But Russia has got better rockets than India, more capable rockets. India has never bothered to develop more capable rockets. When it comes to Opto-SAR, even I was surprised why was it launched by SpaceX. Let me see what's the mass of the satellite. What's the mass of the Opto-SAR satellite that was recently launched by a SpaceX rocket? Mass 190 kilograms. That's a tiny little thing. I thought it would be like a few tons or something. It's a 190 kilogram satellite. I mean, you could deadlift that if you're reasonably, decently strong. 190 kilograms. That's a small satellite. Well, so it looks like there was no PSLV or GSLV that was going to be launched. We only have like 5 launch windows in a year. So maybe that's why they said we'll go with and maybe the PSLV and GSLV cost way more than a SpaceX launch. The SpaceX rockets, they charge the least per kilogram for launch. It used to be ISRO's rockets that were the cheapest, but after SpaceX took over the space race and developed the reusable booster technology, from that time onwards, the SpaceX rockets are the cheapest in terms of dollars per kilogram launched into orbit. So SpaceX has defeated ISRO in terms of in the affordability race. So maybe that's also a factor, significant factor. Why, if you are a startup in India, you want to launch a satellite, you will go with SpaceX, not with ISRO. So I don't think it's sabotage fear. Maybe there was no rocket scheduled to launch in the near future, and maybe there was no space for a small satellite, and maybe the cost was too prohibitively high. That's why they went with SpaceX. That's what I can think of. Of course, I don't have the answers, but this is the logical analysis. Now, Navik launching on 23rd May through GSLV. Let's find out, okay? Navik 03 next launch. Let's see. Okay, so it's scheduled to launch. ISRO is scheduled to launch the next navigation Navik satellite NVS 03 by late 2025 or early 2026. So late 25 is gone. We are no longer in early 26, we are in mid 26. So maybe what Rajat is saying is correct. 23rd May. Let me see. 23 May 26. Is that the case? ISRO is planning to launch NVS 030405 by September 27. I have no idea. This is all going in slow motion. It's like watching paint dry or grass grow. Um, it's very important for India to have the Navik system operational, fully functional again. Right now, it is severely degraded, to put it mildly. Sparshadatta. Thank you very much, Sparshadatta. Thank you so much. Ritik Pawar says, how do you see the rise of influencers and celebrities in Indian politics? Can celebrities be better policymakers than current politicians? Is this a warning sign? I think overall there's no difference in quality. Whether you are an influencer or a celebrity or a politician, you think politicians are doing a great job in India? Overall, I'm sure there are some politicians who are fantastic. I think the Prime Minister of India is overall fantastic. Okay, despite whatever criticism I do, overall he is the best Prime Minister we've had. So I'm not talking about Mr. Modi, but on average, the Indian politician isn't the most high quality person. There are of course exceptions, right? But on average, the Indian politician, what they do, I mean, even it makes no difference whether a celebrity takes over that position, or an influencer takes over the politician, or an entertainer takes over that politician, that position. Makes no real difference. Yeah. So how do I see the rise of influence in celebrities? I think it's a sign that people are sick and tired of politicians doing nothing. So they are saying, okay, we will now elect actors, and they will also do nothing, I suppose. Or maybe there's more hope from actors or non-politicians. Yeah, maybe. Is it a warning sign? The warning signs are long gone, decades ago. Alvin Rodriguez says, Jai Hind, sir. Jai Hind. Scientist Factory. Okay. So the question is, how big is big? How small is small? Is the Planck length the smallest unit of measure? So how big is big? How small is small? I would say what is big is a parsec, a parallax second. Parallax second, which is how many light years? I don't recall right now. How many light years is one parsec? Yeah, 3 point something light years, right? 3.2 something. So that's one parallax second. I think that's big. 3 point something light years, 3.26 light years. That's one parsec. That's actually, even that is tiny on a cosmological scale. What is really large on the cosmological scale is the scale of a cosmological filament, a galactic filament of dark matter. Now, that is the scaffolding of the universe. These filaments of dark matter. Would you like to see what these filaments look like? Okay, let's see. Dark matter filaments. So these are not actual images. These are representative creations or representations of dark matter filaments. So this looks exactly like the neural structure of the human brain, by the way. Okay, neurons and axons and dendrites and nodes of Ranvier and cytons, synaptic gaps, etc. This is what the human brain structure looks like. This is also what the large scale structure of the universe, the scaffolding of the universe through dark matter filaments looks like. So this is real large. Now, what's the scale? Scale, right? It's I think thousands of light years. Scale of dark matter filaments. Thousands of light years. Okay, that's millions. 9 megaparsecs. Average length of about 9. So let's say 10 megaparsecs. That is 1 times 10 raised to 7 parsecs, which is I would say about the scale. It's about 10 million roughly light years in scale. So that 10 million light years, 10 raised to 7 light years, that is reasonably big on a cosmological scale. Okay, that's how big is big. How small is small? I would say the Planck scale, the Planck length, right? 10 raised to minus 44 centimeters. 10 raised to minus 44 meters, right? That's roughly the Planck length. Sorry, 10 raised to minus 35. Minus 35. Planck second is 10. Okay, Planck second. There's no such thing as a Planck second, but there's something I have used and called it the Planck second. That's about 10 raised to minus 45 seconds. In terms of Planck length, it's about 10 raised to minus 35 or so meters, right? The Planck scale. So Planck length in meters, probably 10 raised to minus 35 or so. Yeah, 1.6 times 10 raised to minus 35 meters. So that is the Planck length. That's the smallest length that makes sense physically. Yeah, that's the length that you can construct using the fundamental constants like the speed of light and so on and so forth. So the smallest unit of length you can construct using the fundamental constants is the Planck length, which is of the order of 10 raised to minus 35 meters. At scales smaller than that, physics doesn't physics anymore. It doesn't make sense anymore physically. It doesn't mean that there is nothing smaller than that scale. It only tells you that the Planck length is a limitation of our understanding of physics. Okay? So yeah, you could say the Planck length is the smallest unit of space, of length we can measure using whatever we understand of physics. But it doesn't necessarily mean there is nothing smaller than that. I mean, there could be things smaller than that. I mean, if you look into loop quantum gravity, the quantum foam is probably smaller than the Planck scale. Or maybe not. Maybe not. Okay, so but yeah, you could say that the Planck scale, the Planck length, is the smallest unit you can actually of length you can actually measure. Piyush Shukla says West human rights reports are like Google review from a guy who just burned down a restaurant. Service is poor, 1 star, would recommend regime change. Yeah, mostly like that. These Western human rights reports and all, these are politically and geopolitically motivated. Okay, they are simply used as tools they're used as sticks to beat nations with. Their own panels of so-called experts will write these reports, and then the governments will take these reports and say that you are bad. That's why your regime is bad, and that's why your regime needs to go. No credibility whatsoever outside of the West. Sujal Rajput says Assam government is using the old 1950s era law to literally push Bangladeshis across the border at night without any trial. Would this move sour our relation with the already hostile neighbor, and do other states need this? Okay, so what is my position? So first of all, I'm not aware of this happening. Okay, I don't know about this. But let us say the Assam government is using some old law to push Bangladeshis across the border at night. Is this terrible? I think this is brilliant. I don't care what our relations with Bangladesh are. Illegals have no right to be in India. See, I welcome people who come into India legally. How does a foreigner enter India legally? You have to go to the Indian embassy or consulate, apply for a visa. Once the visa is approved, you take the visa and you enter India, and you stay in India as long as the visa allows you. That way, you are a legal traveler to India, and you are welcome to come into India that way. The illegals who come into India without visas, who cross the border surreptitiously, they are breaking the law. They are criminals. Criminals have no place in India. I don't care which law India is, Assam government or whoever is using. We have to deport all illegal infiltrators, no matter how many years they've been living in India. Even if they've been living in India for 5 decades, I don't care. Out. I don't care if the Bangladesh government doesn't like it. It doesn't concern India. Illegals need to be ejected, deported from India legally, through legal means. So if we are using an old law, it doesn't matter if the law is old or new. As long as it's a valid law, it can be used. Nothing wrong with that. And every state needs to do this. And we should not be concerned about whether the Bangladeshis will be pleased or displeased with this. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. Fabian Thomas says, if the universe can be considered as a body, Is quantum mechanics its nervous system? No central brain, but instant connections, holding everything. Nervous system. If the universe is a body, is quantum mechanics the nervous system? I would say it's the dark matter filaments that could be the nervous system potentially. Quantum mechanics is just the software that's running the whole thing at the smallest scales. And at the largest scales, general relativity is the software that's running everything. But the scaffolding, the nervous system, it's probably the dark matter filaments, which once again, let me show you what they look like. Dark matter filaments. The dark matter filaments, those connections look exactly like the system of neurons in the human brain. Exactly the same structure. So if the universe is a body, then the brain, the neurons, etc., are the dark matter filaments. Yeah. Incredible how the extremely small and the extremely large have the same structure. Okay. Ashutosh Divekar says India imports roughly on the order of 10 million tons per annum of phosphorus every year for fertilizers. India has no phosphate reserves. Can this vulnerability be weaponized by others? Of course, it can be weaponized by others. Whenever you are dependent on outsiders for something that's critical, it is a major vulnerability, and it's something that you could regard as, a lack of sovereignty in certain matters. For example, if a nation imports 60%, maybe 70% of its petroleum from outside, it's got a critical dependency on certain nations, and that can be weaponized against your nation. Similarly, if you're importing, let's say, whatever percentage of phosphorus from other countries, and you have zero phosphate reserves, it's a very dangerous situation to be in. It's a very dangerous vulnerability. It's not like the others will not be aware of what your vulnerabilities are. Every nation, especially nations that matter, they analyze the weaknesses and strengths of every other nation in great detail. China will know exactly what India's vulnerabilities are, whether it is phosphate vulnerabilities, whether it is the need to import petroleum, oil, gas, all that. These are all vulnerabilities. So all these vulnerabilities can indeed be weaponized by others. And that's why India has to make sure that by hook or by crook, it becomes self-sufficient in all these critical things. India has one of the largest reserves of rare earth minerals in the world, but India imports everything from China. We have never set up the infrastructure and the capability to extract, process, refine our own rare earths. That's why we are dependent on China for this, despite having some of the world's largest reserves of rare earths. But in terms of phosphate, I'm not sure what the situation is, whether we have no reserves. In that case, it's a big vulnerability, and we have to do something about that. TSP says, you think US government has access to stuff SpaceX launch? You think US government has access to stuff SpaceX launches? You mean the Starlink satellites and all? The US government has access to everything. The US government has access to everything SpaceX launches if the US government needs it. Of course it does. Of course it does. Piyush Shukla says, if R1A1 start in India, why is the highest frequency in Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan rather than the Ganga plains? Did the original Indians prefer steppe, or is the Indian frequency diluted? Kyrgyzstan is this much. This much. India is this much. Kyrgyzstan is this much. Tajikistan is this much. This much. So Tajikistan is this, Kyrgyzstan is that, India is this. Within India, there will be regions of the same size as Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan where locally, regionally, the frequency will be higher than Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan. Do you understand that? Within India, there will be regions where the frequency is higher than Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan. So does it prove anything? It proves nothing. Why do we say, why do I say, and why does Dr. Neeraj Rai say that India is the homeland from which R1A emerged? It's because the highest diversity of subclades within R1A is found in India. Wherever a genetic mutation originates, that place is going to show the highest diversity of subclades. And that is found in India. Right? So the point is, India is the size of a subcontinent. There are parts of India where you will have lower frequencies of R1A compared to, let's say, Ukraine or Germany, possibly. But there will be parts of India where you have way higher frequency locally. Okay? So did the original Indians prefer step in India is the original homeland of R1A. Here to Win says, is world divided into two halves? One half for the US, other half for China. There is no artificial racism towards Chinese. The US is not harsh towards Chinese like towards Indians. The world is not divided into anything. It is what the powers make of it that happens. So it's not like nature has ordained that the world will be divided in half. It is the two most powerful nations that are trying to divide the world up between themselves. So the strong do what they can, and the weak suffer what they must. If India doesn't want to be dragged into one of the two halves, then India has to rise by raising its standards. That's what needs to happen. So the world is currently not exactly divided into two halves. The world is currently maybe 3/4 owned by the US. And the rest is China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. And they're trying to expand the piece of the pie that they have. And the global system is kind of bifurcating right now. And nations like India are stuck in between. Where do we go? We love America. We love speaking English. But America very bad towards us. Now, what do we do? That's where India is stuck. Right? So the solution is either India becomes a vassal state of the US or China, or rises. It's much easier to become a vassal state. It's so much more difficult to rise. So let's see what direction India takes, what trajectory India takes. I have said this multiple times in the past. There's a 50% chance India becomes an American vassal in the next 5 years. If that doesn't happen, India can't be stopped. Piyush Sinha says, if the US needs India against China, then why is the US not trying to foster military relations between the US and India? Why are they creating internal problems in India? It will eventually benefit China then. It's a great question, Piyush. It's a great question. For the past 20 years, the American logic was that we need India against China. We will use India as a counterbalance to China. We will cooperate with India. We will give India access to some of our wonderful weapons. We'll have India buy American Chinook helicopters. We'll have India buy other weapon systems, transport aircraft and Poseidon aircraft and so on. We will establish a strategic partnership with India. And by doing that, when required, we will use India against China. That has been the logic, the rationale, the thinking, and the actions of the US over a period between maybe 2005-6 all the way until the early 2020s. Okay? So that was the logic, and that's what the Americans were doing. They were trying their best to foster better relations, military relations, strategic relations between the US and India. Now, the US has decided we will no longer have that sort of approach towards India. The US has now decided that India must be contained. And the US is now confident it can contain China also without needing India. Okay? So that's why they are creating all kinds of, let's say, internal problems and containment issues and all for India. Will it benefit China? Maybe to some extent, but overall, the US is very clear it can contain China too. Maybe they're not right about, maybe they're wrong about this, maybe they're mistaken, like they were mistaken about Iran. Trump thought, I will defeat Iran in 2 days. I will kill the Ayatollah, murder him, and then the Iranians will come begging to me for a ceasefire. Didn't work that way, right? Maybe the Americans are full of hubris and very, very, very badly overconfident. But when it comes to India, the US is way more powerful than India, so they can create problems for India the way they are doing right now. Manav Mitra, thank you very much, Manav Mitra ji. Thank you so much. Piyush Shukla says, if the Aryans brought Sanskrit from the steppe, why does steppe have 0 Sanskrit inscriptions? This is a good question you ask. Why does the steppe have 0 Sanskrit inscriptions while India has an entire universe of it? It's like saying the British invented English in Antarctica and then moved to London to start speaking it. Yeah, you are right. Makes no logical sense, right? Makes no logical sense. The Aryans, well, according to the Aryan invasion, migration, tourism, picnic myth, according to this theory, Sanskrit originated in the steppe, Sintashta Petrovka region, and so on. Okay? That's the original homeland of the Indo-Iranians, according to the Aryan invasion, migration, etc. theory. And then the Indo-Iranians came south. One branch went to Iran, one came to India. So Sanskrit existed there. The Vedic religion was created there, and so on. That's what the theory says. So where's the evidence of Sanskrit there? Maybe our ancestors had no writing at the time. Maybe they only spoke Sanskrit. They memorized things, and they did not write at the time. So that's another possibility, according to them, that there was no writing 5,000-6,000 years ago. But then, how do you explain the Rig Veda not talking about any steppe animals, steppe, flora and fauna, steppe weather conditions, no aurora borealis, nothing? The Rig Veda, which is the oldest foundational text of Indian civilization and also of Persian civilization, by the way, how come the Rig Veda doesn't speak of any of that? There are too many inconsistencies, there are too many holes, too many flaws in this theory. And overall, no sane person believes this theory. It's only politically or religiously or civilizationally motivated individuals and people who lack intelligence that believe in the Aryan invasion, migration, tourism, picnic myth. Rajat says, why is there matter-antimatter asymmetry? Well, I'll tell you, Rajat, that's a great question. It's one of the biggest open problems, unsolved problems in physics. One of the major open, unsolved mysteries in physics. Now, if I can successfully answer your question, I should get a Nobel Prize for sure. Right? The point is, we don't know. Physics doesn't have a clear answer to this question. We know that antimatter exists because we come across it in nature. We have a phenomenon called cosmic rays. Once in a while, we find antiprotons that are cosmic rays. Cosmic ray antiprotons. We know what their abundance and frequency and so on is. So we know that antimatter does exist in nature. But where does it come from? What process produces antimatter in the universe? We know that the overwhelming majority of the matter in the universe, baryonic matter, is regular matter. There's a very tiny smattering of antimatter, which probably is created by certain physical phenomena, perhaps. Maybe Hawking radiation, maybe something else. But why is this the case? And to that we don't have an answer. Maybe there are certain speculative theories out there. Maybe the Big Bang was a symmetric phenomenon. It gave rise to 2 universes, perhaps. One was a matter universe, one was an antimatter universe. So you have a symmetric thing where matter, antimatter, overall cancel each other out. Maybe that's why you actually have symmetry, but you can't see it. That's a possibility, but there's no evidence of it because we don't know what's out there beyond our universe. So we don't have the answer yet, but we have some speculative theories that could potentially explain why we have this seeming asymmetry, which may not be asymmetry. Vivan says historians like Ibba Koch and Satish Grover describe Imam Zadeh Hussain, Iran, and Shah Chiragh as the ancestors of Mughal monuments like Taj Mahal and Humayun tomb. How much of this is true? I don't know who is Ibba Koch. I don't know who is Satish Grover. I don't know who is Imam Zadeh Hussain. Is it Imam Hussain, the martyr of Karbala? And Iran and Shah Chiragh as the ancestors of the Mughal monuments like Taj Mahal, Humayun tomb. How much of this is true? I have no idea. I have no idea. I have no interest in this part of history. I don't regard the Taj Mahal as an Indian monument. It's an imposition on the people of India, created using Indian labor and Indian money. Nothing to do with Indian culture or civilization. Humayun tomb, same thing. So I don't know about these things. Yeah. I have never bothered to study Mughal history. Never interested me. And so I don't know what's the origin of all these things. Imam Zadeh Hussain, Shah Chiragh. No idea. Sorry. Very sorry. No idea. Manav Mitra says, what are your opinions on the Artemis 2 mission? Will there be a space race again in the coming decades, or is it actually a chance to innovate and explore our solar system? Will there be a space race in the coming decades? Well, you see, my dear friends, we are in the middle of a frantic space race already. The 20th century space race was a race for status. Who is greater technologically, the US or the USSR? It was about one-upmanship. It was about status, the space race. But today we have the technological means to profit materially and economically and commercially from space exploration. So today it is deadly serious. It's not like the 20th century space race, which was a race about status. A contest. This 21st century space race is totally different. It's deadly serious. There's a lot of money to be made. You go to the moon. From the moon's regolith, you can extract certain isotopes of helium that can power very, very efficient nuclear fusion reactors in the future. There's so much minerals to be extracted from the moon, eventually from Mars and so on. There's a chance to make tremendous amounts of money from the space race. We already have a space race, which is heating up. India is not participating. That's why we in India may not realize it, but there's a rush to get back to the moon. The Chinese have been doing tremendous progress in their moon landing and retrieval technology. Step by step, logically defined progression of technology they've done. Tremendous. Kudos to China. Admirable what they've achieved. And the Americans are now realizing we cannot get left behind. So they are now going back to the moon soon. Artemis 2 was a successful translunar injection mission. They did a flyby of the moon and returned to Earth successfully. Great job. So the US wants to take the lead. In a couple of years, they may have a moon landing in the southern part of the moon near the South Pole, where there is water. They will then declare that region part of US territory or whatever. The Chinese will soon follow suit. The Russians may also get involved with China. India has long-term plans of some kind. I don't know what it is. So the space race is very much on. It's heating up. The Artemis 2 mission was a great success. The US is now going to reach the moon ahead of China. The Chinese, by 2030 or so, they plan to send humans to the moon. India, hum dekhenge. Piyush Sinha says, China admitted its role in Operation Sindoor. Really? Really? China, I'll be shocked if China did that. Let's see. Did China admit any kind of role in Operation Sindoor? Role. Oh, so I'm shocked now. I'm officially shocked. Piyush, you're right. China has officially acknowledged providing on-site technical assistance to Pakistan during Operation Sindoor. This was confirmed through interviews with Chinese engineers aired by state media, and so on. Also, Chinese satellites supplied intelligence. Engineers were involved with optimizing J-10C fighters and so on. Okay, so the Chinese are now okay. I'm glad this has happened. We should know very clearly that China is our enemy. We should know it very clearly. So thank you, Piyush, for bringing this to my notice. Good. It's a good development. So now it's no longer a secret, right? The Chinese are officially admitting that they have uh, behaved in a hostile manner towards India by helping the terrorist nation of Pakistan. Good to know. Good that it's clear now, crystal clear. Good. Fabian Thomas says, is there a framework that looks space-time from beyond causality? As general relativity breaks at the singularity, did quantum nature exist before the Big Bang? What existed or did not exist before the Big Bang is something we can't know, right? Because we have no data of anything that existed before a Big Bang. I mean, time itself began with the Big Bang. So how do we ask what happened before the Big Bang when there was no time before the Big Bang? It's like asking, think of it like this, okay? It's like asking, what is north of the North Pole? It's kind of like that. It makes no physical sense. So before time t equal to 0 is the moment of the Big Bang. After that, it's time goes forward, 1 second, 2 seconds, so on. So there was no time before the Big Bang. So before Big Bang, it makes no physical sense. And whatever quantum nature exists in the universe, which obviously it does, it all is an outcome of the events of the Big Bang. So the question, obviously, we want to understand the origins of everything, right? Which is why we want to know what was there before the Big Bang. We can't begin to speculate. Maybe the Big Bang was the beginning of a simulation inside a massive computer run by hyperdimensional aliens. Maybe, we don't know. So anything is possible. Any theory, hypothesis can make sense or not, because we don't know anything about like you said, before the Big Bang. Is there a framework that looks at space-time from beyond causality? Not that I'm aware of. Space-time is causal. It's very causal, right? Space-time is the four-dimensional stage in which we exist, in which the universe's happenings happen, right? So space and time are meshed together in this four-dimensional fabric, and the presence of mass tells space-time how to curve, and the curvature of space-time tells mass how to move. That's the eternal dance. Right, okay. Shivansh says, I know you don't talk about national politics, but can you tell us how the Congress era was? Was it really so bad that people our parents' age did not even want to think about bringing the Congress back? So, look, I can tell you about my childhood memories. Okay? When I was a little kid, I have memories that go back to my very, very, very initial days. I mean, not the first week after I was born, but when I was less than a year old. My first hazy memories are from back then. So when I was a little kid, it was normal for people to walk barefoot in India. If you were lucky, you had a bicycle. Okay? Like today, if you are reasonably middle class, you have generally a four-wheeler, right? Back in the day, it was a bicycle. So everyone who was reasonably well off would have a bicycle that they would go to work on, and a lot of people would be barefoot, and there was starvation. Today, you can't imagine an Indian starving, right? But there was starvation. People would starve. So things were really bad back in the day. I will not talk about which party was in power or not, but you can imagine, right? Things were really bad. People had to stand in line for kerosene. I haven't seen that personally, but it's a fact. People had to stand in long queues for kerosene, otherwise you won't be able to cook at home. People had those kerosene stoves which they would pressurize with a gas with an air piston or something. Uh, Everything there was a scarcity of everything in India. Everything was artificially rationed, artificially made scarce, and overall it was just terrible, terrible. Obviously, the world was much simpler back then, and I'm sure some people think back of those old days as something that was much nicer, much more peaceful era. But overall, it was a time of very of crushing poverty, of artificial scarcity, and just overall everything was difficult for Indians. Anuj Dikshit says, "Understanding America, you said there'll be 100 episodes. Well, things change. Things change. Maybe there will be 100 episodes. We'll see. We'll see about that. And thank you for the reminder that I have that unfinished business of understanding America. We will see. It's not cancelled. It is currently on ice. Maybe there will be 100 episodes. We'll look into that. Piyush Sinha says, according to my assessment, the judiciary is a much bigger problem in India. Even if all the 550 MPs unite to pass a bill allowing mandatory death penalty for certain cases, the SC would strike it. When it comes to the judiciary, no comments. Okay? You will hopefully excuse me and forgive me, but no comments about the judiciary. Okay? Sorry. Bhaskar Gupta says, India borders China, which borders Russia, which borders the US, all sovereign in one line. As per Chanakya, US and China must be natural ally. Okay. Which feels real as many times both work together against India and fund Pakistan views. You're talking about the Rajmandal theory, right? Chanakya. It's not as simplistic as that. See, India borders, where today India borders China, it's Chinese occupied Tibet, but yeah, on the map it's China. China borders Russia, which borders the US. So as per Chanakya, the US and China must be natural allies. No, who says that? It's not like that. It's not that super simplistic. Rajamandal theory is the theory of concentric circles and so on. It's not about which nations borders which, and it's not like that. Rajamandal theory is a theory of concentric circles. The US, China, Russia are not aligned in concentric circles around each other. The Rajmandal theory applies to small states. Okay? Kingdoms, small kingdoms, at times when India was fragmented, that sort of situation. It doesn't apply to continent-sized empires. It does not. Okay? We know US and China, see, you have to understand, you have to apply the theory properly. You know, first of all, read the theory in detail. You have to read the Arthashastra. You have to understand what the Rajmandal theory actually says. And then you can apply it somewhere. Chanakya did not say that the US and China must be natural allies. Nope, 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 nope. It does not work that way at all. The Rajmandal theory applies to small states, small kingdoms, small nations. It doesn't apply to superpowers or near superpowers. All right, so it doesn't work like that. Piyush Sinha says the Gulf states become safer and tourist hubs because their judiciary guarantees accurate punishment for crimes. Well, that's one factor. The real reason why the Gulf states are safe and tourist hubs is because they have autocratic governments that are benevolent. They're kingdoms. It's not the judiciary that is the cause that is responsible for guaranteeing punishment. It's the king who is responsible to have a judiciary that guarantees punishment. It's not the judiciary. The judiciary is simply something the king has created. The judiciary answers to the king. If the king didn't care, the judiciary won't care. The king cares, that's why it works. That's why the police ensures strict discipline in the Gulf countries, right? It's because the rulers are serious about, you know, safety and security and overall civilized behavior. That's the reason. Okay. Austin Joseph says, no questions, but what to thank you. I have learned a lot from you over many months. Watching your podcast, your knowledge is incredible in memory like a supercomputer. Thank you very much. Well, Austin, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your very, very kind words. Very nice, very, very kind words. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you very much. What else can I say? Thank you so much. It's very, very kind of you to say this. Thank you. Manav Mitra says, what are your opinions on the Artemis 2 mission? Will there be a space race again in the coming decades? Or is it actually a chance to innovate and explore our solar system? I think I answered this question a while ago. Artemis 2 mission, what's my opinion? Successful, super successful. It achieved all its objectives. The space race is very much here. It's not going to come in the next few decades. We are in the middle of a very, very, very strong space race, right? Every serious, ambitious nation is participating in the space race. India is not. And obviously, when you compete against others, that's what gives rise to innovation. Innovation doesn't happen in times of peace. The pace isn't great. When there's a type of conflict and a space race, that's when the innovation rates, speed of innovation is at the highest. And that's what's going to end up driving the exploration of our solar system, most likely. So that's the deal. Piyush Sinha says that the British colonized other parts of the world also. Then why then so many problems in India only? Why we only developed a habit of complaining all the time? See, in the case of India, they could not exterminate Indians and genocide Indians. So they mentally colonized Indians. In the case of North America, they killed maybe 100 million natives. Problem solved. In the case of Australia, Tasmania, they completely wiped out the natives, exterminated them. In the case of Australia, they reduced the natives to the position of flora and fauna. So when there is no native left alive, who will complain? In India, they could not exterminate us, so they mentally colonized us. They did much worse to other parts of the world than India. At least we still exist, and at least we can change things. Okay? So India actually, overall, India is lucky that the Anglos could not exterminate us because we were too many and too numerous to be exterminated. They tried. They engineered hundreds of artificial famines. They tried to do their best in exterminating us, but didn't work. Okay. NVM says, a follow-up question. Ashwamedha Yagna in Rigved was expansionist in nature, and many kings vastly expanded their kingdoms. Is this not expansionism? Is there a difference between Western and Indian definitions of it? The Ashwamedha Yagna was purely expansionist in nature. This was absolutely expansionism. Right? So many kings, many emperors greatly expanded their kingdoms using this ritual, the Ashwamedha Yagna. This is absolutely expansionism. When the Cholas conquered the whole of Southeast Asia and vassalized Southeast Asia, that was pure expansionism, pure imperialist expansionism. Right? And so on. There are so many other examples like this. So this is expansionism, of course it is. But is there a difference between Indian and Western definitions of expansion? No, not in the definitions, but in the way it was done. When India expanded, for example, when the Chola Empire conquered Sri Vijaya and so on and vassalized the whole of Southeast Asia, it became the superpower in the region. But the Chola Empire was not extractive. It did not extract the wealth out of those regions. It never did that. When the West expands, it colonizes, ruins, pillages, plunders, and extracts. Indian expansionism was never like that. Indian expansionism was, you could perhaps compare it to the Mongol Empire. The Mongol Empire expanded vastly, but never extracted anything from the regions it conquered. Right? That sort of thing. So it's different. The Eastern way of doing things is different from the Western way of doing things. Shreya Arora says, should a Hindu be Islamophobic, or the Islamophobia in Hindus propaganda by BJP to gain Hindu votes? Should a Hindu be Islamophobic, or the Islamophobia in Hindus a propaganda by BJP to gain Hindu votes? I think, you know what, I don't discuss as a matter of policy Hindu-Muslim issues and religious issues and matters of India's domestic politics. So I'm going to say sorry and no comments about this. It's just a matter of policy. I'm sorry about this, that you paid for this question. You probably are a new viewer to this channel. There are so many YouTube channels in India that discuss precisely these matters. This is not that sort of channel. I don't go into Hindu-Muslim issues and religious issues and Indian politics and all. I discuss history, geopolitics, science. I keep it clean. I don't get into this matter. So I'm very sorry. I will not comment about this. Apologies, Shreyaji. Apologies. Piyush Sinha says, James England says, India will never become like China. Time has already passed, never ever. Fact is, India's law and order system itself is containing India. Then what is the goal of India and what is India's aim? So James says India will never become like China. Time has already passed. Never ever. So never say never, first of all. A lot of what James is pointing out is correct. India's system, the governance system, the law and order system, the overall system, it is a self-deterring system. It's a self-containing system. The system imposes low standards, mediocrity, friction, inertia, and entropy onto the population, and ensures that most of India's potential is dissipated within through friction. Right? So James is actually pointing out a truth to India. But so then what is the goal of India? What is India's aim? See, which India are we talking about? Are we talking about the nation state that is ruled by politicians? Their objective is to be rent seekers. Not all politicians, some are fantastic, but the average politician in India is a rent seeker. He or she produces nothing of any value for India, the average politician, and extracts whatever they can out of India. And then they send it to the children who live abroad. But obviously, there are some politicians who are fantastic and great. So I'm not saying that all politicians are like this. The average politician is mediocre and a rent seeker. Their objective is to keep plundering India the way the British plundered India. The British, 1947, what happened? The British left India and we had the replacement of one set of crooks with another set of crooks. That's all that happened. So their objective is to just keep plundering India and enrich themselves and their descendants. That's their aim. That's the aim of and that's why the system aids and abets them. But that's not India's aim. They are not India, right? The system is not India. The system is a parasitical organism that India is saddled with. India is the civilization. India's goal is what your goal is and our goal should be. India's goal should be to rise again and to defeat this parasitical organism, the system that is keeping us down. That should be India's aim. India's aim should be to rise again and once again reacquire what has been our historical, natural position in the world, the largest economy. And the genuine Vishwaguru. We invented education, didn't we? That should be India's goal. Your politicians don't have this goal. Their goal is that of mediocrity. So, yeah, H. Gouda says, how can one heal himself from disease with mindset? If you have a disease, I will highly, highly recommend go and consult a high quality medical professional. I don't know how to heal yourself from disease with mindset. Let's say you fracture your forearm. Can you set the bones right using your mindset? You can't. You need to have them set by professionals. You need a plaster for a couple of months or 3 months or whatever time it is. Sometimes you may need surgery to repair the fracture. You can't deal with that using mindset. But the fracture is an accident. What if you have some kind of disease? Let's say you have, for the sake of argument, malaria. Malaria. Do you think you can defeat the falciparum, plasmodium falciparum using mindset? No. You need artemisinin or you need quinine. Right? The organism is a protozoan. You can't defeat that with your mindset. So I will highly recommend, please don't try to deal with disease through mindset. Consult high quality medical professionals and get the right kind of treatment, medical treatment. Okay. Famous Georgian guy. Oh, well, I wonder who that would be. Joseph Vissarion. Is that you? Did you know Pakistan has an unsinkable aircraft carrier? Unsinkable carrier 6,000 kilometers away. Pakistan has an unsinkable carrier 6,000 kilometers away. Is what is that? Let me try and find out. What's 6,000 kilometers from Pakistan? Did you know Pakistan has an unsinkable carrier 6,000 kilometers away? I wonder what that is. What's the distance from India to, for example, Madagascar? It's 3,000. No, that's not that far. 6,000 kilometers, unsinkable carrier. Where is that? What are you referring to, sir? Are you talking about? Aha. So are you saying England? England is Pakistan's unsinkable carrier? Maybe it is. Very interesting. Devik Shriyan says Pakistan and Bangladesh signed a memorandum of understanding on intelligence sharing. Well, I would like to congratulate East and West Pakistan on their renewed partnership. Congratulations and best wishes. Okay. Rajat says, will cosmic strings prove to be real? Well, it would be interesting if they do. First of all, since we're discussing cosmic strings, what are cosmic strings? Is it something that comes out of string theory? No. Cosmic strings don't come out of string theory. Cosmic strings are topological defects in the fabric of space-time itself. What do I mean by that? They are wrinkles in the fabric of space-time. Say you have a piece of paper and you wrinkle it, then there's this wrinkle which doesn't go away, even if you try to smooth it out. It's a wrinkle. So imagine there's space-time. We are within space-time. What if space-time itself has wrinkles that date back to the formation of the universe in the Big Bang? Then what happens? And those wrinkles in space-time, these are called cosmic strings, and these will have specific observable characteristics. For instance, here's the weird thing. If you go around a cosmic string, you probably will end up going less than 360 degrees or more than 360 degrees. That's how weird. It'll mess up the fabric of space-time itself. And they will have a tremendous mass. They will cause gravitational lensing and so much more. So it's a totally theoretical construct. Nobody has ever, discovered a cosmic string. But if cosmic strings exist, they could have interesting applications. Like they could perhaps keep the throat of a Einstein-Rosen bridge open. What's an Einstein-Rosen bridge? It's a wormhole. So wormholes, they are valid solutions to Einstein's field equations of general relativity. But wormholes, they want their necks to snap shut. You can't keep the neck open, the throat open, the throat. So how do you keep it open? You may need something like a cosmic spring to pass through it. Then you could keep it open. So it could be useful if it does exist. Yeah. Uh, Hyper engineering or something in the future. Okay. Rajat says, what if the fine structure constant goes down by 20%? It's going to mess up the entire universe and we won't exist anymore. Essentially, that's what happens. But fortunately, it's not going to happen. Well, one hopes. One hopes. Piyush Sinha says, democracy, human rights, protests, all these tools the US once nurtured are now backfiring on them. Could some sort of situation come in the future where the deep state would place a de facto dictatorship in the US so that no need for giving justification for the ongoing wars to the public? You have a de facto dictatorship in the US. It doesn't matter who is the US president. Look, right now you have the great, fantastic Mr. Trump. But before Mr. Trump, you had Joe Biden. Do you think Joe Biden was actually running the country? Joe Biden was barely conscious. Joe Biden. And yet, the US went on. Somebody was running the country. Wasn't Joe Biden. Wasn't Kamala. So, it doesn't matter who the US president is. There is an establishment which rules the country, and they are way more powerful than the US president. So it's essentially a dictatorship. The US is a two-party state, which is one step above a one-party system like North Korea or China. And the two parties have essentially the same policies internationally, whether it is the military policy or the economic policy or whatever. Only the domestic policies are different. So it's essentially a one-party, a uniparty state, the US. It's an autocracy masquerading as a democracy. So that's the perfect camouflage you need to do anything you want. And in the US, you don't need to justify any war. The public loves wars. Hell yeah, USA, USA, USA. That's it. They love wars. You don't have to give any justification unless you lose. And when you lose, what do? You unleash UFOs. So could all this backfire on the US? Well, you never know. Could happen someday. But right now, the US has things under control, I think. Okay, so we have Sagar Ghare who says, Sar, how can I improve my spoken English? A friend mocked my broken English publicly. I feel nervous speaking on calls with whites. Will reading easy World War I and World War II history books help me improve? So you want to improve your spoken English. Reading won't improve your English. Practicing speaking will improve your English. First of all, English is just one of thousands of languages. There's nothing special about English. If you can speak English well, it doesn't make you a better person. Just like speaking Swahili better, or speaking Swahili well, or Chinese well, or Greek well doesn't make you a better person. It's just a language. But in India, we are mentally colonized, so we imagine that if we can speak English with a certain accent that sounds foreign, then we are somehow intellectually superior to those who can't speak English. Well, yeah, that's stupidity. But anyhow, you want to improve your English, you will not be able to improve your English by reading more. You will be able to improve your English by speaking more. So what do you speak? I would say memorize short speeches. Speeches by, let's not go all the way back to Abraham Lincoln or something, but read things aloud. Read a paragraph while reading it, then speak it. Speak it aloud while reading it, then speak it aloud without reading it. Repeat it one sentence at a time. That way you will get into the habit of speaking grammatically correct English. Of course, I am no expert in this, but I think that will help you improve. There is a tool that many people use. I think it works for some people, that if you want to become a better writer, just take a book from a writer you admire, whose style you admire, and copy the writing by hand. So sentence, word by word, sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph, write it down using pen on paper. It's called copy work or something. So I suppose the same thing can be applied to spoken English. Read Charles Dickens or whatever, whoever you like, okay, and read it aloud. Read it aloud. Do it maybe 30 minutes a day for the next 6 months. I'm sure you will find some improvement in your spoken English, right? So it will work with any book that has proper grammatical English, whether it's World War One, World War Two history books, or novels or whatever. As long as it is proper grammatical English and you're reading it aloud half an hour a day for the next 6 months, I'm sure there will be significant improvement. All right, Sagar, all the best. Piyush Shukla says, time traveler here from 2040 can confirm we are not vassal. Oh, well, I so hope that you are actually time traveler and telling the truth. I so hope so. Godliness says, based on your knowledge and your evaluation, name 3 to 4 world leaders who you think can fire Parmanu bomb if needed. Also, what can be the trigger? Look, there are 9 nuclear weapons states in the world right now. 9 nations that have nuclear weapons. They can all use them if needed. They can all use them if needed. Can Trump use nukes if needed? Yeah, he can. Can Putin? Of course he can. She? Yeah. Netanyahu? Oh, I promise you he can. Mr. Modi? He will use them if needed. Yeah. Every nation that has nukes will probably be willing to use them if needed. What can be the trigger? Red lines being crossed. Existential threat to a nation is what will trigger nukes. Unless you're crazy like the Pakistanis and something else will trigger nukes, who knows? But they're not crazy, by the way. Okay. Amandeep says, what alternative ways petrol products can be produced from method like Fischer-Tropsch are scalable to mitigate import at 70%? I am not a chemist, so I can't say for sure. You obviously can create synthetic petroleum, right? I'm sure you can. From coal or something else. Let me see. Can synthetic petroleum be created from what raw materials? That's a weird, ungrammatical question, but whatever. Synthetic petroleum can be created from carbon-containing raw materials, most commonly coal, natural gas, and biomass. Biomass, well, that's fantastic. Using chemical processes like Fischer-Tropsch synthesis. Okay, Fischer-Tropsch. So, at what scale? Using Fischer-Tropsch synthesis. At what scale? That's the question. That's the question, right? At scales ranging from small specialized lab setups to massive industrial complexes. Commercially, it operates at massive scale with plants like Shell's Pearl GTL in Qatar, producing 140,000 barrels of liquid products per day. Well, that's fantastic. So if you have sufficient coal or biomass, you can produce large quantities, like 100,000 barrels per day. Well, that's good. Yeah, it looks like India should wake the hell up and do something like this, right? So I am not a chemist. I'm obviously having to look at Google to find out the information. I am not a chemist. I don't know how this is done. I know that synthetic petroleum can be manufactured. Looks like it's called the Fischer-Tropsch process. What is the Fischer-Tropsch process? I have not seen the chemical reactions and the synthesis and whether you read catalysts or whatever. But yeah, I suppose India could use this methodology to perhaps mitigate the problem that we face, right? We have to import about 70% of our petroleum. Yeah, maybe India should look into this very seriously. Yeah. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, good to see you, Pradeep Kumar Roy. Your views about probiotics and low FODMAP diet. Okay, probiotics are good for your gut health, for your intestinal flora and flora. The gut bacteria, which are the beneficial good bacteria, about 50%, maybe more than 50% of the cells in your body are non-human in nature. and they're actually beneficial for you on as long as you're healthy. The intestinal bacteria, the gut flora, and probiotics are good for that. Probiotics are fermented products like yogurt, uh, like um, like kimchi, like a sauerkraut, like fermented bamboo shoots, and then so on and so forth. From fermented foods. That is a source of beneficial bacteria. So that's good for health. That's good for health. What is FODMAP? I don't know what FODMAP is. I mean, I've heard of it, but I forget. FODMAP. What is that? Short chain carbohydrates, sugars, and fibers that this small intestine. Okay, you mean it's okay. Small intestine absorbs poorly, causing symptoms like bloating, gas, stomach pain, with irritable bowel syndrome. Low FODMAP diet is a temporary phase 3. I'm not an expert in this, but sounds like it's a good idea. A low FODMAP diet sounds like it's a good idea. Okay. Godliness says India has water scarcity, and in this situation, we are allowing Western firms to build their data centers in India, knowing they will share nothing with us. Why are we so happy in getting used for what? You see, these data centers, they will consume tremendous amounts of power. They will need to consume water as well for cooling and other processes, and they will not produce jobs. A data center is not going to produce a large number of jobs. We're going to host foreign data for some money. It's not a great idea. I agree with you, Godliness. You're raising a very important point here. We will need to produce the energy, the electricity that will power the data centers. We will have to use water to cool for the cooling of the data centers. When you have so many CPUs, GPUs working, overnight, overtime, all the time, you need cooling, you need power, you need water. And you can have a whole building, 20-story building filled with these machines, and it's not going to generate a large number of jobs. It can all be done autonomously to a large extent. You will need some employees, but not thousands of employees. So overall, it's not a great thing for India, unless it's our own data. In that case, it makes sense. But hosting data centers for others, it's not the best idea. So I agree with you, Godliness. Smooth Landing says, if you could magically equip a satellite with one futuristic capability beyond today's technological limits, what would it be and why? If I could futuristically equip a satellite with one futuristic capability beyond today's technological limits, it's a good question. I would give it a force field that magically, right? Well, there's multiple things I would love to do with such a satellite. One is I would want to give it antimatter propulsion, matter-antimatter annihilation propulsion that turns it from a satellite into a spacecraft. Secondly, I would like it to have a force field that conceals it. So it becomes invisible essentially. That's two things, two futuristic capabilities that are not beyond the laws of physics, but are like magic level technology for us today. So I can think of a couple of things. I'm sure there's more. What else? You asked me for one, I gave you two. I'm sure if I think a little bit more, I could come up with some more. But let's keep this going. So really interesting thought experiment right here. Yeah. So what's a force field like? So it's like a shield that is dynamic in nature. It covers the spacecraft like a skin that's one atom thick or something. Maybe it's invisible, and photons are absorbed and emitted the other side. So it's like an invisibility shield. And let's say you shoot a bullet or a projectile at it, it'll absorb it, immediately convert it into energy and absorb it. E equals mc squared. So once again, that's within the laws of physics, but it's magic like technology. So you could have a person with that sort of invisible shield or sheath covering them. You could shoot them. The bullet will be absorbed by the shield, and the person won't ever be hit by the bullet. Right? So that's definitely futuristic, but it doesn't violate the laws of physics. Yeah. Okay. Ashutosh Divekar says a way for India to be Purna Atmanirbhar is to recover it from the human agricultural waste, a humongous logistical nightmare. To recover India from human agricultural waste. Yeah, if you could have the infrastructure to properly deal with the biomass, the agricultural waste, human animal waste, and perhaps turn that into something useful. Natural gas. If you could do that, that could really solve so many of India's energy issues and also be great for the environment and be great for the country overall. Yeah, so because biomass can be converted into natural gas, human waste, animal waste, agricultural waste, that's all biomass. If you could just, and India produces so much of this every single day. If that can be harnessed properly, used properly, it could revolutionize and transform India's energy landscape and make India a much better place overall and cleaner place. Yeah, should be done. Of course, it will take some doing, but hey, it can be done. NVM says, could the early universe have started in an unstable state that produced equal matter and antimatter, but due to some asymmetry, a small excess of matter survived after most got annihilated? The question is if it was symmetric. The question is if there was asymmetry, what caused the asymmetry? Right? It's possible. It's possible. So the universe started in an unstable state. It's still in an unstable state. The universe is still in an unstable state. It is expanding, and the expansion is accelerating. That's instability. It's not in a state of homeostasis. It's not in a state of equilibrium. It's unstable. So the instability that produced the Big Bang is still, it's still out there. It's still impelling the evolution of the universe. So you had an unstable state, sure. Now, did it produce equal matter and antimatter? We don't know about that. Was there an annihilation of antimatter and matter, and only a little bit of matter was left behind because of asymmetry? That's a possibility, but we don't know for sure. There's also another possibility that there was a symmetric Big Bang which gave rise to two universes. One was a matter universe, one was an antimatter universe. That's also a possibility. So these are all possibilities, theoretical possibilities, but are they true? Which one of these is correct, which is not? We have absolutely no idea as of right now, because of a lack of observational evidence mostly. Yeah. Kratos Aryavartavasi says, can first cause ever be answered? If God or Big Bang caused everything, what caused them? And then their cause chain. If eternal, where did eternity arise from? That's a great question. It's a philosophical question, but a very logical question. Philosophy is rational and logical. Okay? So this is a philosophical question, but it's a fundamental question. Can first cause ever be answered? The answer seems to be no. No matter how dig we deep, there's going to be more causative factors that you will uncover. And then how do you answer that, right? So maybe we will never ever get to the bottom of the mystery of the beginning of the universe and what's behind it all. But hey, that shouldn't stop us from trying, because solving mysteries is fun, isn't it? Go as deep as you can. So it looks like maybe first cause can never be answered. I mean, let's say the universe is a simulation, okay? Let's say this universe is a simulation that exists inside a hypercomputer that is operated by a hyper alien teenager. It's fun. So that explains the origin of the universe. But who created the teenager? What's the origin of that? Yeah, what's the origin of that alien in that hyper universe? That also we have to then answer. How do you answer that? I don't know. So right, it looks like there is no end to this cause and effect chain, which seems logical. So it looks like we may never have the answer. And your question frames it properly. Good. Business says, what about the Artemis program by APJ Abdul Kalam? Um, the Artemis program is the American program to send humans back to the moon. The Americans want to win the moon race. They want to be first on the moon. Um, and it's gonna the first renewed moon landing is probably going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years. They've also already done Artemis 2, which was a successful flyby of the moon, and it went very successfully. So overall, that's what it is. It's part of the new moon rush. It's part of the space race, and the Americans are obviously in the lead thus far. That's the Artemis program. I'm not sure what the late Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam has to do with that. He was an Indian engineer and scientist, of course, an ex-president of India, and a very, very inspirational person. But I'm not sure what connection he has with the Artemis program. The Artemis program is an American program. I'm not sure if there is any connection between Shri APJ Abdul Kalamji and the Artemis program. Fabian Thomas says, since our minds are a product of the Big Bang, is it our limit or a futile endeavor and impossibility that we can look at space-time from a high dim view? See, our minds are obviously inside the universe. They were produced from atoms from baryonic matter, right? And this matter obviously is part of the universe. So our minds are a product of the Big Bang. Absolutely correct. No question about it. So is it a futile endeavor? Is it a limiting thing, a limiting factor? Is it a futile endeavor? Is it an impossibility that we can look at space-time from a high dim view? I'm not sure what a high dim view means. High but dim. I'm not sure what you mean by that. See, we are embedded in space-time. We certainly can perceive the dimensions of space. There are 3 space dimensions, right? X, Y, Z, 3 axes. X-axis is the horizontal axis, the Y-axis is the vertical axis, and the Z-axis is the one that goes there. So if you see the corner of a room, you will see 3 axes, right? Those are the 3 dimensions of space. That's why we have 3-dimensional space. But time is very vaguely perceived by us. We very vaguely perceive it. Now we have found ways of quantifying time, seconds and minutes and hours and so on. But does a dog perceive time? Does a cat perceive time? Are they aware that time is passing? I'm not really sure about that. Maybe they are, maybe we can't say. So time is hazy for us. Space is very concrete. Space, 3 spatial dimensions. So that's how we see it. For most people, it's not intuitive that space-time is a thing. We understand the space is a thing. Time seems to be different. But from the GR perspective, space-time is one unified 4-dimensional fabric. But I'm not sure what you mean by a high dim view. So I don't know. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, no time before the Big Bang. Your thoughts about the Wigner's friend experiment? Maybe there's a different reality for observers outside of our universe. No time before the Big Bang. I don't remember what's the Wigner's friend experiment. Let's find out. Wigner's friend experiment. Eugene Wigner. So it's a quantum mechanism. Is it about Alice and Bob? Alice and Bob. Is that the one? Let me quickly see. Is it Alice and Bob? No, it's not Alice and Bob. Okay, so let's quickly see. It's a quantum mechanics thought experiment from 1961 where a friend measures the quantum system while a super observer, Wigner, outside of the lab treats the entire lab, including the friend, as a single superposition. It exposes a paradox where the observer and the super observer disagree on when wave function collapse occurs, challenging the universality of quantum mechanics and the nature of subjective reality. So inside the lab, a friend measures a qubit in superposition, 50% and 0. Okay. 50% 1. Upon measurement, the friend sees a definite outcome, 0 or 1, and the superposition collapses, say, to 0. Okay. Wigner, outside the sealed lab, Wigner does not know the result. According to quantum mechanics, if the lab is isolated, Wigner sees the system, including the friend's memory of the result, still in a superposition. Right. Right. So that's a paradox, of course. Collapse versus unitary. Okay. So, yeah, it's an interesting paradox that emerges from um, what we treat as a system in quantum mechanics. Okay. Um, interesting for sure. My thoughts interesting, right? What do we consider to be a system? What is the collapse of the wave function? There's a super observer. Yeah. Okay. So quantum mechanics is full of paradoxes, right? Paradoxes, and we don't quite understand quantum mechanics. What all of this tells us, there are all these paradoxes that come out of quantum mechanics. The Schrodinger's cat experiment, the Wigner's friend experiment, which was Alice and Bob. There is potential retrocausality as well. So many things. And obviously, then we have the phenomena that themselves are so weird, right? Entanglement, superposition, and so on and so forth. Quantum mechanics is very poorly understood by us. We know how to use quantum mechanics, but we don't know what quantum mechanics is telling us. Why is the world quantum mechanical? From a very basic perspective, from the Bohr perspective, why do we have stationary states? Why do electrons move in stationary states from Bohr's perspective? They're in orbitals, right? And why do you need n equal to 1, 2, 3, and so on? JK, what KLMN? Yeah, the shells. Why? We don't know why. We don't know. So we don't really understand quantum mechanics very well. That's why there are different interpretations of quantum mechanics. Maybe that's a different reality for observers outside of the universe. Maybe, but do the rules of quantum mechanics apply to observers outside of the universe? We don't know about that at all. So big mysteries. There's so much we don't understand about the universe. We actually understand next to nothing about the universe. That's a fact. Okay. DSCV Srilakshmi says, nice meeting you again. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. If India doesn't regain strength, its civilizational future may weaken. What roadblocks do you see ahead? Yeah. If India doesn't regain its strength, its civilizational future may weaken. I agree with you, ma'am. What roadblocks do we see ahead? The major roadblock for India is the system. What do I mean by the system? The system is the entire governance system, the bureaucracy, the laws, the constitution, the various institutions. Everything is colonial in nature. Everything is foreign in nature. The entire system acts as an extractive organism, a rent-seeking organism, an organism that imposes friction and inertia and low standards on the nation, right? Whether it's the political system, whether it's the alleged corruption, and so many things. All of the system is the problem. India has chosen a system that is demonstrably unsuitable for a subcontinent-sized civilization and nation. The least India could have done would have been to choose a presidential form of democracy, which is so much better suited to a large entity. So that the Westminster system that India has chosen, the parliamentary democracy system, that's suitable for a small island like Britain. It's not suitable for a gigantic subcontinent-sized entity like India. So we need a different system. We need a better system. If India wants to remain a democracy, India needs to transition to a presidential form of democracy. And India needs to clean up the system. All the institutions, the educational system, everything needs to be reformed, revamped, and brought in line with India's civilizational values. Right now, it's like a foreign imposition on the country. Right? So these are the roadblocks. This is what needs to be fixed. If this is fixed, India will take off. Right. Ankita Kachap says, age-old question, God created us or we created the concept of God? Well, I don't know. I don't know. We certainly did imagine that there's a God or gods out there, right? We did imagine that. But maybe there's a reason we imagined that. Maybe there are gods out there. I don't know, right? You're asking me whether I know that God exists or not. Well, I don't know, right? I don't know. I'll be very pleased if God or gods exist. I am what you could call a hopeful agnostic. I don't know if God exists or not, or gods exist or not. I have never been blessed by a vision or a manifestation or a touch, light touch of the gods. I've led a perfectly ordinary existence my entire life, sadly. Some people, they actually get to see God. I've never had that great fortune. I've never experienced magic. Nothing. I've experienced a purely physical universe. So I don't know if God exists or not. But personally, I've never experienced it. I've never experienced the supernatural, mostly. So I'm very hopeful that God or gods exist, but I don't know for sure. Yeah. So I don't have an answer to the question. Definitely, our ancestors did believe that gods exist, and that's why this tradition is carried on. Perhaps we are all delusional and mistaken, and there's no God, and we created the concept. Or maybe God does exist, but reveals himself or herself only to you in very specific circumstances. Don't know. Aniket says, share your insights, share your lights on Japanese samurai history. For that, you need a 3-hour podcast or something to get into Japanese samurai history. What I will tell you, because we don't have the right amount of time here, is that the Japanese, the samurai, were essentially the warrior class of Japan. They were, you could say, the Japanese Kshatriyas. Okay? And they were dharmic warriors. Nominally, they were Buddhist, but Japanese Buddhism has lots of elements of Hinduism. Every single god and goddess that is venerated in Hinduism is also worshipped in Japan using Japanese names. So Japanese Buddhism is more like Hinduism, Buddhism syncretized with Japanese Shinto culture. And so the samurai were dharmic warriors. They were Kshatriyas of Japan. Their job was to rule over society and safeguard the sovereignty of Japan. And they had a very strict code of ethics and behavior, which was called Bushido. So that's what I can tell you in brief about Japanese samurai history. And the samurais were destroyed in the middle, roughly in the middle of the 19th century, in a process called the Meiji Restoration, which is the beginning of a disaster for Japan. Piyush Sinha says, I asked my friend to suggest me a question so that I can ask you. He asked, what is his tuition teacher, Mr. Anand, role in his career? Your views on it. Your friend's question is, what is his tuition teacher, Mr. Anand, role in his career? And my views on it. Well, I wish I could answer that question, but in order to answer that question, I will need some information first. That information that I will need is, who is your friend? What is he studying? What is Mr. Anand, his tuition teacher, teaching him? How good is Mr. Anand as a tuition teacher and as a tutor? I don't have any of that information, so I can't really answer the question, unfortunately. I wish I could, but I can't. So, well, say hi to your friend on my behalf and to Mr. Anand as well. Pradeep Kumar Roy says there are many Earth-like planets like Kepler 452b, K218b, Trappist 1e, etc., but no sign of aliens. Maybe Fermi's paradox is accurate. Maybe life is present outside of our universe. Your views? I think it is highly likely that there's life teeming across the universe in microbial form. Maybe microbes. You may even have that in our own solar system. So I think it is very likely that primitive life must be very common in the universe. Maybe if you go to Europa, Enceladus, or wherever in our own solar system, you may find primitive life. Maybe Titan. You may find primitive microscopic microorganism like life in our own solar system itself. And maybe on these other exoplanets that are in their respective Goldilocks zones. You may have microbial life there. You may even have fish and worms and whatnot. But what we are interested in is human-like intelligence or superior intelligence to humans, and that may be super rare. So I think life may be pretty common in our universe, but intelligent life may be pretty rare. That is the difference. Godliness says, in the last 12 years of Mr. Modi, we have come a long way and we are in a better place. But the real danger, which can ruin this state and or can turn us into a vassal, is still here and flourishing. Okay, and you have not referred to or mentioned what is this real danger. So you are hinting at something. You're hinting at something, but you are not mentioning it. Yeah, so the real danger is everything I've been speaking about for a long time. It's an amalgamation of multiple issues. Yes, the real danger is that we don't reform our system. The real danger is so many other things. Multiple dangers at multiple levels, and those can turn us into a vassal, and they are still, and that corruption is still here and flourishing, right? The real danger, that corruption is still here and flourishing. Okay, you're actually okay. I missed that. You mentioned corruption. Corruption, the alleged corruption, is a huge alleged problem in India, allegedly, and it's a allegedly a gigantic problem. Allegedly, the whole country runs on this thing. Allegedly, so when are we launching a war on corruption? Is the big question. Big question. Yeah, we're still waiting. We're still waiting. Humanity survives, says data centers on the moon. War and natural calamities safe. You could have data centers in orbit or on the moon. So yeah, if we go to war over here on the planet, the data centers will stay safe. If there's an earthquake here, you don't have anything similar on the moon. You have moonquakes, which are tiny compared to earthquakes. So maybe data centers on the moon make sense, but who's going to cool them? How do you cool them? You could keep them in the permanently shadowed regions of craters, and then you have great cooling, perhaps. Maybe that makes sense. So yeah, it's a great, it's a very interesting proposal and idea, certainly. Satvik Durga says, Professor Jiang video on World War Trump at 37 minutes. The map he was showing had entire Kashmir under China. Why are our neighbors obsessed with Kashmir? Okay, Mr. Professor Jiang, I haven't watched any of his videos, maybe a couple of clips long time ago, like a couple of months ago. So I have no idea about what he's up to. He's very popular on YouTube. I'm aware of that. He showed a map in which the whole of Kashmir is under China. Well, obviously he must be a Chinese nationalist. Why are our neighbors obsessed with Kashmir? Because we are weak. Because we show a certain map of the subcontinent, which is not a reality on the ground. Because certain parts of Kashmir are under Chinese occupation, certain parts of Kashmir are under Pakistani occupation. The map we show is what we desire, but it's not the truth. It's not a fact right now. Right? And that's why the world likes to poke fun at us by doing these things. It is what it is, right? If you take over if you take back the whole of Kashmir, the world won't be able to do it. Then they will become a joke if they put out such maps. But right now, the joke is on us because we are weak. Prateep Kumar Roy says, why does secret societies like Freemasons force people to believe in God before someone joins them? Are they calling atheists stupid? I see. I have been asked many questions about Freemasons. I know nothing about Freemasons. I have not studied their history. I don't know what their objectives are. I don't know what their initiation rituals are. There are like 33 degrees or 36 degrees or whatever in their thing. I have no idea about them. Do they force people to believe in God? How can you force people to believe in something? You may force people to say that they believe in something, but you can't force them to actually believe something in there, right? So I don't know what it is all about. It's about enforcing obedience, perhaps, to make people behave in certain ways, to be able to control people. I'm not sure what it is. Are they calling atheists stupid? I don't know if that is also the case. Also, I don't think the objective of a society of Freemasons is to call people stupid. Maybe it's to achieve some ends that are secret in nature. So I can't say. I don't know anything about the Freemasons. I haven't ever had the opportunity or the time to study them. So yeah, don't know much about the Freemasons. Shivaraj Shivarajput says, one of my Dalit workers, 50 years, sow crop in field from Gorakhpur, went to Russia to earn rupees via family birth incentive. In some regions of Russia, Islamic population is rising. Do you think Russia Muslim majority in the future? I don't think the percentage of Muslims in Russia is even 10%. I don't. What's the percentage of Muslims in Russia? What percentage of Russia's population is Muslim? Must be like, oh wow, it's 10 to 15%. So I was a little off. So Muslims are 10 to 15% of Russia's population, which is probably less than the Muslim population of percentage of Muslims in India, right? In India, it must be about 20% by now. Um, the 2011 census is like a lifetime ago. It's no longer relevant. So 10 to 15% of Russia's population is Muslim. I think Russia becoming Muslim majority in the future is still far fetched. Maybe not in the next 50 to 100 years. Yeah, I think it's still a far fetched thing. It next 50 years, I don't think it will happen. Maybe not even 100 years. So yeah, Gigi says, you think we will have a revolution to end mediocrity soon? I think it's unlikely. I think it's unfortunately unlikely. And I wouldn't want a revolution. I would want revolutionary reforms done in a proper, organized, systematic manner without any of the chaos that you have in revolutions, because revolutions end up destroying more than they create. So I would like to have revolutionary reforms, and I don't see that happening anytime soon, unfortunately. Deva says, Namaste ji, Deva. Namaste. How can we get people to ditch short term thinking about freebies and vote for policies which build sustainable growth for future generations? That's the crux of the matter. Right now, you have in India a system where people vote for freebies. Whichever party gives them more freebies, that party will get the votes. So there's a mindset, right? That people will vote for whichever party gives them the more freebies. That's obviously short term thinking. That mindset is that of short term thinking. How do we get people to ditch this mentality of short term thinking about freebies and all, and think about the long term security, prosperity, etc., of the country and the civilization for multiple generations, not just for our short term gains? How do we change the mentality of the people? How is the question? Well, I have the answer for you. You reform the education system from the ground up, and you teach the right values and the right principles and right everything from the first day the children go to school all the way up to the time when they finish high school, college, university. That's what you have to do. That will solve the problem. It's not a that itself is a long-term process. It will take at least 20 years to implement this, but that will have an impact that will last for generations. So the solution is to reform the education system. There is no other way to change this mindset. Rano Nahapana says, heard Turkey going to supply about 100,000 drones to Pakistan. Okay. So what should India's response be? To churn out 100 million drones? No, that's too much. Maybe 1 million drones, maybe 10 million drones. Produce drones at scale. Produce drones that are better than anything Turkey can produce. If this is a challenge, if it's a problem, turn it into an opportunity to become the most massive drone manufacturer in the world. Right? So, yeah, that's what India should do. Rano Nahapana says, on this exact night, you were so excited last year. Okay. Operation Sindoor, right? 9th of May last year. Exact night. Yes. And I'm so disappointed now. I'm so disappointed. I was so excited. Now I am so disappointed. When the Operation Sindoor started, I had tweeted this. That we are at war with Pakistan, and in the next few days, the lines on the map will change. And India will inflict a comprehensive defeat on Pakistan, and the lines on the map will change. That's what I had tweeted. And that turned out to be completely wrong. Yeah. So that was very disappointing for me, because India was on the verge of a massive victory over Pakistan, and it was cut short by foreign pressure. Very unfortunate and disappointing. But yes, this exact night last year, I was very excited. So Rano Nahapana seems to be a long-time viewer of mine. So thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate that. And thank you for remembering how it was 365 days ago. Didn't turn out the way we wanted, but there's always next time. NVM says, just like the law of conservation of energy, the reason the first cause never be answered is because there is no true start or end. It's just cycling or moving through different states. The first cause can never be answered is the question of the origin of everything. Is it because there's no true start or end? We don't know what the answer is. We don't know, right? It can't be answered because we don't know what the answer is. Because we can't go beyond our universe. Maybe the cause of the Big Bang lies outside of our universe. But how can we exit our universe? We can't. We exist within the fabric of space-time. Maybe outside of the universe, there's a different kind of fabric that we simply can't exist in. So maybe the reason the first cause can't be answered is because the cause is beyond. It's external to our universe, perhaps. And that's something we can never, ever experience or venture into. Maybe that's the reason why. Or maybe it's a totally unknown reason that we can't even imagine because we are too small, our brains are too small to understand such things. So the answer is unknown, and that's why there is no answer. There is no answer because the answer is unknown. Okay. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, your views about the Boltzmann brain paradox. The Boltzmann brain paradox, okay? It says, Boltzmann brain. It says, what does it say? The Boltzmann brain paradox. Philosophical zombies, is that the one? I mean, you can assemble a brain just like a human brain, and would it be conscious or would it be just... What is a Boltzmann brain? I mean, okay, that's 2 or 3 things that are mixed up in my mind right now. You could have an accidental collection of atoms somewhere in the universe that produces an exact replica of a human brain. So is that the Boltzmann brain? Will it behave just like a human brain? Will it develop consciousness, or will it have the behaviors externally of a human brain, of a human consciousness, and not really be conscious? I don't remember exactly what it is, the Boltzmann brain thing. Let's find out. Boltzmann brain. Brain. A hypothetical self-aware entity that can spontaneously forms in an empty, yeah. Random quantum fluctuations. It exists for a fleeting moment, possessing false memories and perceptions of full life. So it's your philosophical zombie thing, right? This is once again a thought experiment. It's not a paradox. It's a thought experiment, and it's a philosophical, yeah, to challenge cosmological theories. Nice. So, if the universe lasts forever, statistical physics suggests it's far more likely for a single brain to randomly form in a void, complete with illusions of reality, than for a whole universe and humanity to evolve over billions of years. Yeah, so it's a thought experiment. I haven't thought about it for a long time, so I didn't remember. Yeah, so it is about philosophical zombies. So you could have people who also have these philosophical zombies. Could be a different thought experiment. Anyhow, so that's the thing. It's a paradox that in a universe that has existed long enough, you may have a spontaneous formation of a human brain in a void in the universe through quantum fluctuations. Right? You could have it. There's a non-zero statistical probability of that happening, and that brain would have fake memories and whatnot. That's the thing, right? So my views, no views overall. It's an interesting concept. Fabian Thomas says, "Hi dim. High dim is top level. I had asked on Jungian philosophy, and my question: does it explain why God is a psychological reality? You asked me to check in later. High dim is top level. I had asked on Jungian philosophy. And my question: does it explain why God is a psychological reality? I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know much about Jungian psychology. From what little I know, it's very interesting. The shadow, the anima, all that, various archetypes, the id. Yeah, I know those buzzwords. I know a little bit about this, but nothing in any kind of detail, nothing in any kind of depth, right? Jungian philosophy. So I don't know Jungian psychology. No, that's not my thing. I'm not any kind of expert in this. I don't have sufficient knowledge about this. So does it explain about God being a psychological reality? I don't know. Sorry, this is not my thing. Unfortunately, I don't have sufficient knowledge about this. Sorry. Piyush Sinha says, "Good night, sir. We'll come with some fantastic questions tomorrow. Good night, and I'll see you tomorrow with some interesting questions. I look forward to them. Sure. Thank you." The Grok says, "My friend went to China and EU and said India is nowhere close to China in cleanliness, technological rules, etc. And foreigners consider Indians similar to Pakistanis and Bangladeshis. I felt bad, but also true." Okay, your friend went to China, and the parts of China that your friend saw were far superior to Indian cleanliness. Yeah, of course. You go to Shanghai, you go to Guangzhou, you go to Chongqing, you go to Beijing, you go to Hong Kong, far better than India in cleanliness and law and order rules, everything. You go to the EU, same thing, far better than India. India is a dysfunctional country. Everything is done half-heartedly, and I don't need to repeat myself, right? So India is super low standards as a nation. India is Nigeria with nukes. No disrespect intended for Nigeria. So if you are from Europe, if you are from China, you will consider Indians to be the same category as Pakistanis and Bangladeshis. Because first of all, we are the same ethnicity, and secondly, standards are very similar. It's true. It's just a fact. Right? Ranona Hapana says, "Actually, I'm your viewer since December 2020. Good God. The video. Shri Chinggis Khan. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That's what kicked everything off, right? December 2020. Yes, that one video. Yeah. Thank you so much. Anabil Sarkar says, "Apparently, Kuki terrorists attacked Naga in Manipur 7th May. Yeah, They are now attacking everybody. Initially, see, this cookie terrorism started in Manipur. Well, it didn't start in 2023. It had started a long time before that. It was a fact in the 20th century, in the 1970s, what they did to the Nagas back then. In the 1990s, there was an actual Naga Kuki war that happened. The Nagas won, and the Meiteis very magnanimously gave shelter and help to the Cookies. And now the Cookies are killing Meiteis. So in 2023, I think sometime in May, in the beginning of May, the Cookies went on a rampage in Manipur, and that rampage still continues. And they went after the Meiteis, did all kinds of horrific atrocities on the Meiteis, and now they are going after the Nagas too. 7th May, it's been going on since 2023. It's been going on for decades, actually, right? Koki terrorism. Yeah. So that's a bad situation in Manipur. And the indigenous people are suffering. The Hindus are suffering. Even the Christians are suffering now. Sad. I'm smiling, but it's a terrible situation. And I wonder what the government of India is doing about this. I would say not a lot. And with that, we end today's live stream. That was the last question. For the last super chat. So let me end it here. It's been almost 4 hours. Thank you so much for your viewership, for the questions, for everything. And we will continue this tomorrow. And next week, we will have topical Ask Abhijit sessions. Maybe we will have one on UFOs and aliens. Maybe we'll have one on artificial intelligence. The first AI episode I did was in 2021. Since then, I've not done any. So maybe we should cover these topics one by one. So let's do something like that next week. But I will have another live stream tomorrow in which you can ask me anything, whatever you want. I look forward to seeing you there tomorrow in less than 24 hours. Until then, take care. Good night, good day, wherever you are. I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.